す午後、なんとなく立ち止まってみた。ぽつりと空いた心の隙間、埋めるように動いた携帯のマナー。君は一人じゃない、ほらみな、互いに支え合ってくのさ。
不安定な未来が怖くて悩んでいた僕に向かって、何も言わずにそっと手を差し伸べてくれる君がいた。悲しみが半分になった、喜びは2倍に膨らんだ。逆の立場になったらすぐさまそばまで駆けつけると誓った。いつも支えてくれる人たちに日頃の思いを込めたラプソディ。アプリシエーションな気持ちを届け、いつもありがとう、本当はありがとう。たとえどこに立って君の存在に感謝してるよ。 Far away, far away 遠く離れていても流れる時の中で共に過ごした日々の記憶は決して消えることはないのさ。仲間や家族や恋人、そして出会った全ての人々、ありがとう皆のおかげで私から力強く踏み出せ。
人は誰も一人では生きていきやしない。互いが互いをいつもケアし合い、理解できない時は話し合い、腹抱えるぐらい笑い合いたい。なのになぜこう時にけなし合い、傷つけ合うのって気がしない。バカバカしいほど君が好きだ、照れくさいけどちょっと本気だ。
いつも支えてくれる人たちに日頃の思いを込めたラプソディ。アプリシエーションな気持ちを届け、いつもありがとう、本当はありがとう。たとえどこに立って君の存在に感謝してるよ。きっと皆意外とシャイで面と向かってなかなか口に出して言えなくて、
だけど本当は言いたいくせに何かが邪魔して皆強がって、
時にはさらけ出して伝えよう。
言葉には不思議な力が宿るよ。
簡単なことさ、自分からまず始めよう、きっとできるよ。I will be there just forever 君がいてくれたように Flame forever I will be there just forever 君がいてくれたように。いつも支えてくれる人たちに日頃の思いを込めたラプソディ。アプリシエーションな気持ちを届け、いつもありがとう、本当はありがとう。たとえどこに立って君の存在に感謝してるよ。いつも支えてくれる人たちに日頃の思いを込めたラプソディ。アプリシエーションな気持ちを届け、いつもありがとう、本当はありがとう。たとえどこに立って君の存在
Hello everybody, how are we today? I know it's been a little while. Hey, I tried typing in chat. Can we turn off shield mode? I can't do it from my control panel right now. If you can switch it off, I would need to log on. There we go, thank you so much. For some reason, it's logged me out of everything, and I was already live before I realized I couldn't type in chat. Thank you so much. Shield up, no. How's it going, everybody? Let's bring ourselves over here. Hello, it's been a little while. I have been doing moving stuff. I flew out back to where I lived, got all the rest of my stuff. You can see all my shit here that's still kind of in the process of getting distributed. Hello, everybody. So, some stuff has happened since the last time we spoke. We got on the plane. Let me swap some music real quick. I'm sorry, Chappelle, or Chapel, we're gonna have to stop you. Also, I need to turn off the picture-in-picture because it's driving me crazy. Alright, so we got on the plane to come back home, and we were all good. And we got off the plane, well, not all good, but we got off the plane, and we were not quite at war with Venezuela. I'm not really sure. It's not war. Our president is the anti-war president, obviously, so we are very clearly not at war, obviously. That's what he says, you know. I think we are live on YouTube. We are live on both vertical and horizontal on YouTube, I believe. So we should be showing up in people's feeds. Maybe we'll get that guy who keeps coming back, even though, like, the fact that I'm showing up in his feed is his fault. I wanted to talk about a few things today. I have some opinions about the things that are going on. Obviously, I think we have all seen the Renee Good video. I think I'm not going to be showing it on stream because that is just simply not something that I want to force everyone to watch. State sanctioned murder, though, is awesome. Reminder that to any of us whose parents were in the similar vein as mine and told me to stop watching CNN about everything, feeling a little vindicated, but the schadenfreude doesn't really outweigh the mess of it all, right? It's been pretty bad. It's been pretty bad. I am fortunately a little bit far away from it all. I'm going back to the East Coast this weekend to go to A&E, so if anybody is going to be at A&E, I might be able to see you there. I'm probably going to some of the meetups, we'll see. I was taking a look at the panels that are on display, and I'm not super interested in most of them. But it's nice to see everybody. Thank you all for stopping in. I think that I do want to talk about ICE and Minneapolis and just the jackbooted thugs that are killing people in the streets. Obviously, they have been doing it for a long time. It is not just a new thing that is happening. This is not the first time, nor is it even really the most egregious overreach. It just happens to be a white woman this time, and if that can happen to a white woman, it can happen to anybody. So I think that that's the important thing to take away from the whole situation, is that, like, this is supposed to be the kind of person that if you did all of the things that they were doing, You know, you were law-abiding citizens. There, no matter what they try to convince you that this woman was, you know, a domestic terrorist, that she was ramming people with her car. This was, like, I think it's pretty obvious to all of us that Renee Good was just an average person who was doing the best that she could to abide by the law, and still be a conscientious objector to the, you know, fascist takeover that's going on. And that's supposed to be something that keeps you safe, but obviously that is not the case anymore. State violence has always been, it's I think disingenuous probably to compare what's happening right now to Nazi Germany, if only because it's a bit dismissive of the situation, and that it's really like a uniquely American problem. Maybe not uniquely American, but definitely American. Just the way that we have our police force organized, of course, police with even less oversight is not going to be a good thing. It is a mess. Everything has been a mess. And that's awesome. Obviously. So, I think that the number one thing I want to talk about, at least that I have, you know, I have my own reason to have an opinion on. The Supreme Court currently, let me pull up myself okay, I need to turn off picture-in-picture, please, 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 please. Oh my god, how do I stop it? No, close it, please. Never use it ever. God. Hello, Allie. Hello. Alright, now I can actually use my search function. You are first. I'm so proud of you. Sorry, I'm logging in because everything has logged me out. Oh, cool. Did Eric Adams do a rug pull? Versus... Oh, excuse me. We're pulling up some articles just to go through it. All right, I think we've talked before about, you know, trans people in sports and my personal opinions on it, but pull up the... Yeah, okay. I think we have a pretty decent spread now. Alright, we can actually get in on this now. Bring ourselves over here. Howdy, chat. What's this? What am I doing? What's going on? There we go. Okay. We are going a little crazy with it. Hey. That was way down there for some reason. It still hit me, I guess. Oh my god, I'm getting covered up. Boob strike. Bonk. Titty bonk. All right. I grabbed left, center, and right leaning information on this, so we can start. We're gonna start with the left and then move over to the right as we talk about it, and then I have an NIH piece to talk about this all. So starting with Erin, Erin in the morning, who is a transgender person herself, and so has investment in this issue. Tomorrow, oral arguments will be heard in 2 cases that could provide pivotal for transgender rights nationwide, and this was posted yesterday, so this is today. West Virginia versus, excuse me, wow. There we go. My bad, everybody. West Virginia versus BPJ and Little versus Hecox. Both stem from state laws banning transgender athletes from participating in school sports, one at the high school level and the other at the collegiate level. In each case, lower courts blocked the bans, finding that they likely violate the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause, as well as Title IX's prohibition on sex discrimination in education. Now, these rulings are under direct threat. The cases have since been brought to the Supreme Court by Republican state attorneys general with backing from Alliance Defending Freedom, a central legal force behind Project 2025. While much of the early coverage has framed the Supreme Court's review as narrowly about sports, the stakes are far higher. Depending on how the court rules, these cases could reshape the legal framework governing transgender rights for an entire generation. Both cases involve transgender girls who participated in sports before being targeted by state bans, and in both instances, lower courts ruled that those bans were discriminatory. In BPJ's case, she transitioned in the 3rd grade and never went through male puberty. No athlete was cut from a team to accommodate her, and claims that she possessed a biological advantage stretch credulity. She initially competed in running events before later moving to shot put and discus before her participation was ultimately barred by West Virginia state law. Lindsay Haycox, meanwhile, was a collegiate runner who complied with testosterone suppression requirements. She was banned by Idaho state law. Haycox has since attempted to withdraw from the case due to sustained harassment, but has not been permitted to do so. Awesome. Super cool. Now, both cases have reached the Supreme Court just half a year after the STREAM-A-THON ruling, which held that transgender youth do not have a constitutional right to health care, and states may ban gender-affirming care. While it may be tempting to view those cases as narrow disputes over sports participation, their potential impact extends far beyond athletics. Unlike STREAM-A-THON, where the court framed the issue as one of age classification and medical regulation, a characterization many transgender rights advocates strongly dispute, these cases more directly confront whether transgender people are entitled to equal protection under the law. At stake are foundational questions: whether discrimination on the basis of gender identity constitutes sex discrimination, and whether Title IX offers any protection at all to transgender students. The answers to those questions would reverberate well beyond school sports, reshaping the legal landscape for transgender rights nationwide. So this is what I mean when I say things like transgender sports and transgender athletes are a wedge issue. It means that this is something that it seems small and it's easy to get people behind, but what it really does is it has a wider reach on general opinion and general legal action regarding trans people and their bodies. We are going to discuss later the myths involving biological advantages and disadvantages in sports. I personally advocate for co-ed sporting based on different metrics rather than gender or sex. I think that the way that it's organized right now, personally, obviously I'm not a sports person, but I think that we should attempt to cut the smallest number of people out of any activity and still offer ways for people who want to compete a way to compete. And again, this involves, in the case of West Virginia, it is the one trans girl athlete in the entire state who never experienced male puberty, who was on pubertal suppressants and therefore was likely actually at a disadvantage to her peers in the sport that she was, advocating. But this is where you get people like Riley Gaines, professional loser Riley Gaines, who made an entire career off of grifting because she made it, she tied for 5th place in one race in a swim meet with a transgender woman and was forced to hold a 6th place trophy. Sorry. Just, reminder again, she would have still gotten 5th place. But, we have seen situations where, discrimination based on this is discrimination based on sex, because the only thing that differentiates a trans woman from a cis woman is her biological, as the way that they say it, but their genotypic sex traits and their genotypic sex characteristics. And there are systems in place that are attempting to mitigate any potential unfairness from testosterone, from hormone use, from et cetera, but the people that are advocating for this stuff do not care that there are regulations in place. They do not care that there are systems already in place for all of the things that they are advocating for. They are simply using this as a wedge to make arguments that trans people should not be allowed to participate in public life and in the things that cis people want to do. Either way, let's get back into this article. The two primary legal questions in the cases center on Title IX and the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. Specifically, whether anti-trans policies constitute prohibited sex discrimination or impermissible status-based animus. The Supreme Court largely sidestepped those kinds of constitutional questions in STREAM-A-THON by applying a lower standard of review to medical regulations based on age and diagnosis, but the sports cases leave far less room for avoidance. Yes, they don't want us to participate in existence. I completely agree with that. They are using these easy to win if you're stupid arguments about, like, oh, obviously a man would beat a woman all the time at sport. So there is no situation where a trans person would be able to participate fairly, as if that is in any way true and not just entirely made up on vibes. And again, we will talk about the facts later once we go through the opinions on these articles. Under Title IX, the argument is relatively direct. Penalizing a student for their gender identity is inseparable from their sex assigned at birth, meaning a ban on a transgender girl is fundamentally a ban based on sex. A transgender girl being banned from the bathroom, but not a cisgender girl, means that the transgender girl is banned by virtue of her assigned sex at birth, hence sex discrimination under Title IX. Thank you so much for the sub, Sharkies. Hello and welcome. Thank you for stopping in. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you for your support. Under the Equal Protection Clause, the stakes are even higher. The court may determine whether transgender people qualify as a quasi-suspect class entitled to heightened scrutiny, given a long history of official discrimination, the group's relative political powerlessness, and the basic reality that being transgender bears no relationship to a person's ability to compete, perform, or contribute to society. Ruling in the negative on this could be catastrophic for transgender people. While lower courts have ruled in favor of transgender people, there is a new push to deny transgender people any protections whatsoever. One argument being advanced by the far right is that Title IX not only allows for discrimination against transgender people, it mandates it. Such a ruling would mean that schools and colleges across the United States could discriminate against transgender people in education, not just in school sports, but in bathrooms, locker rooms, dormitory housing, and even admissions policies, effectively legislating transgender students out of public existence and rights when it comes to educational institutions. It's the idea that like these issues are not just a small thing. Like no one issue. It's the same thing where like trans issues are fundamentally tied. We cannot separate them from women's rights issues and sex-based discrimination issues because it is fundamentally discrimination based on your sex assigned at birth. Because again, the only things that separate a cisgender person from a transgender person is your sex assigned at birth. There are mitigations that can be done, and often are done, and there are systems in place to maintain fairness in the systems that we have created. Obviously, I have opinions about the way that we organize sports, as I said before, but that's not for me to decide. There are people that do that and have been doing that for a very long time who are a lot better at it and smarter than me, a girl with a microphone on the internet. Like, there are people that do this and have the science to back it. Again, we're going to go over it. We're going to go through the NIH report. But no, none of these issues are separate. They want you to believe that it is separate because this is a wedge. This is something that they can use to win easy points and push back progress, create precedent that they can then use in future situations. It is effectively weapons that can be used against trans people to limit our access to rights in general and public services, which should be available to all citizens, though obviously with the situations we've been seeing with ICE, that is, they don't want us to have rights even if we are citizens anymore, and they'll just shoot us 3 times in the face and call us a fucking bitch that's fine. No consequences. Alright. When it comes to equal protection, the consequences could be even more dire. The justices may decide whether sports bans violate the Equal Protection Clause based on transgender status or sex. If the court rules that transgender status is not subject to heightened scrutiny, and that discrimination against transgender people does not constitute sex-based discrimination, it would open the door for nearly any law targeting transgender people to be deemed constitutionally permissible. That could include adult bathroom bans, restrictions on birth certificates, housing discrimination, and more. In STREAM-A-THON, the justices sidestepped this question, declining to rule on equal protection and instead anchoring their decision in age and medical diagnosis classifications. In the cases heard tomorrow, that sidestep may be harder to justify, and with a court that has repeatedly shown an intent to narrow transgender rights, this represents equally dangerous territory, or especially dangerous territory. All eyes will be on the Supreme Court as oral arguments unfold tomorrow. Outside the building, advocates from across the country, including the ACLU, Lambda Legal, GSA Network, and the Transgender Law Center, are expected to rally in defense of transgender students whose lives and futures hinge on this case. A decision is likely months away, but its impact will be immediate and far-reaching. What the court chooses to say about equal protection in Title IX will shape not only the fate of our transgender athletes, but the legal standing of transgender people in public life for years to come. Alright, we have a more centrist coverage of this from Reuters, and we will run through that. Challengers say bans violate Constitution and Title IX law. Arguments involve laws passed in West Virginia and Idaho. Trump backs states in crackdown on transgender athletes. Because again, we're all about states' rights until it's the state's right to say no to masked officers coming through and just sweeping people off of the streets. In that case, the state has no rights, and they should, in fact, roll over for the government, the federal government, to do whatever they want, because it is not about states' rights. It is about the right's ability to do anything that they want, as long as it hurts the people that their constituents don't like. Conservative U.S. Supreme Court justices appeared ready on Wednesday to uphold state laws banning transgender athletes from female sports teams amid escalating efforts nationwide to restrict the rights of transgender people. The justices heard more than 3 hours of arguments and appeals by Idaho and West Virginia of decisions by lower courts siding with transgender students who challenged the bans in the two states as violating the U.S. Constitution and a federal anti-discrimination law. 25 other states have similar laws on the books. The Supreme Court, which has a 6-3 conservative majority, backed other restrictions on transgender people in rulings issued last year. That's the STREAM-A-THON ruling that we were talking about earlier. Republican President Donald Trump's administration defended the laws during the arguments. Conservative justices raised concerns about imposing a uniform rule on the entire country amid sharp disagreement and uncertainty over whether medications like puberty blockers or gender-affirming hormones eliminate male physiological advantages in sports. There is not uncertainty about this. Let us remember that there is no uncertainty on this. We have the information. They refuse to acknowledge the information. And in fact, we likely would have more information if it were not for the fact that a large swath of transgender medical science, literally irreplaceable transgender medical science, was destroyed by the literal Nazis in the 1940s when they burned all of the books that had to do with that. Questions by the liberal justices mostly signaled sympathy for the transgender challengers. Sports are kind of a zero-sum game for a lot of teams, conservative Justice Brett Kavanaugh told Joshua Block, a lawyer for the transgender challengers. And someone who tries out and makes it, who is a transgender girl, will bump someone from the starting lineup, from playing time, from the team, from the all-league honors, and those things matter to people big time. I'm gonna be totally serious with you. If you lose to a trans person in sports, be better at sports. If you wanted your spot on the team, you should have been better at the sport. I would like, again, let us be totally clear that trans people were allowed to participate in the Olympics in, I think, all categories for a very long time, for like decades, and not a single trans person brought home a gold medal. Not a single trans person brought home a medal. None of them even placed. So who exactly is getting kicked out of these positions? Who is losing their opportunities? You are making up a guy and then getting mad that it's happening. Obviously, this is, you know, Brett Kavanaugh, who is a professional idiot, but Kavanaugh, who has coached girls basketball teams, I don't know why that is important here. It's just not. That's also, I'm gonna be super serious. The trend of like middle-aged dudes being the coaches for women's sports teams in high school and shit like that is weird to me. I don't think that should be the case. I don't think that we should be having middle-aged dudes preside over female sports teams in high school. I think that is a bigger concern to public safety than any trans person in any locker room ever has been. Brett Kavanaugh, local woman knower, expert on what women should do with their bodies. True. Guy who very famously knows exactly what women want and understands consent. He's very wise. Kavanaugh, who has coached girls basketball teams, who has coached girls, but that's not even like, it doesn't say he's currently doing it. None of that. It says he has done it. So obviously he's an expert. Suggested that because the 1972 Title IX civil rights law that bars sex discrimination in schools and its related regulations permit teams separated by biological sex, it should be up to Congress to change that? What are you fucking talking about? The Idaho and West Virginia laws designate sports teams at public schools, including universities, according to biological sex, and bar students of the male sex from female athletic teams. The states said that the laws preserve fair and safe competition for women and girls. Let us remember again that you can actually change your genotypic sex characteristics. Well, sorry, you can change your phenotypic sex characteristics. You can change a lot of your genotypic sex characteristics as well. So there are valid arguments to say that trans people that have been undergoing HRT for a significant period of time are the female sex, simply with an intersex, some kind of intersex condition, meaning that they have like an XY chromosome. But that is, again, it is dangerous to say that transition or like transness is an intersex condition. It is not specifically that. I'm simply making a parallel there. That is not what I'm not saying. Transness is an intersex condition. If women don't have their own competitions, they won't be able to compete, Alan Hurst, Idaho's Solicitor General, arguing for the state, told the justices. Idaho's law classifies on the basis of sex because sex is what matters in sports, Hurst said. It correlates strongly with countless athletic advantages like size, muscle mass, bone mass, and heart and lung capacity. Okay. To me, this is ridiculous too, because this is the same kind of argument of like I could win against a woman no matter what. Every woman is worse than every man at every sport because they don't have big muscles. And again, we'll go over the facts, but sex is truly not what matters in sports, and I think that Alan Hurst should be forced to compete in a boxing match against a transgender woman. we should force him to get his shit rocked by a trans person. Can we get like a rerun of those Jake Paul and what the fuck is his name? The Manosphere guy. Baldy? The guy who sucks dick and, I'm sorry, smokes cigars, you know, just really likes phallic object in his lips. What was his name? Someone will know it, I'm sure. I don't know. Skinty Adolf Hitler. Oh, we'll go with that. Sex Trafficker McGee. I genuinely don't remember his name. The guy that got his shit rocked by a black guy wearing pink gloves on national television. Yeah. Biological sex doesn't mean anything also. I think that's important. Like, that is something that is always thrown around. People say, like, they're biological sex. But that is a nonsense term that doesn't really mean anything and is just made up by the right to sound intelligent. The case could have wider repercussions for transgender people and affect whether other measures targeting them in the public sphere, including military service, bathroom access, treatment in classrooms, and designations in official documents, such as passports, can be enforced. The challengers issued that the Idaho and West Virginia measures discriminate based on an individual's sex or status as a transgender person in violation of the Constitution's 14th Amendment guarantee of equal protection under the law, as well as Title IX, which bars discrimination in education on the basis of sex. Which, again, it is. It is fundamentally sex-based discrimination, and to say otherwise is just dishonest and disingenuous. Part of the arguments focused on how the Idaho law treats people differently, whether based on sex or their status as transgender, and whether that would require the court to more skeptically assess the reasons expressed by states adopting such measures. A form of judicial review called intermediate scrutiny. Which, again, we need heightened scrutiny for this sort of thing, because it'll force them to look into the idea that this is sex-based discrimination specifically. There is no question here that a male who identifies as female, that is not what transgender is. That is just them saying things that they don't understand. But is a male is being excluded from a female sport. Liberal Justice Sonia Sotomayor told Hearst, by its nature, that is a sex classification, and all sex classifications, we have said repeatedly in our case law, require immediate scrutiny. The plaintiffs also contend that the use of certain medications by transgender students should matter regarding whether states can lawfully apply these bans to them if it can be shown that they do not possess sex-based advantages. Kathleen Hartnett, another lawyer for the challengers, said the Idaho plaintiff mitigated the physical advantage through the use of testosterone suppressants and estrogen, eliminating the ban's justification. Which is, again, true. Defenders of the bans say they are valid regardless of individual circumstances and that physical advantages remain despite medical treatments. Again, we are talking about blanket bans based on, this is the party of, no big government, don't do blanket bans. You have to look at every situation because every situation is different. And then all of a sudden, when every situation is actually different, they don't want anything to do with it because they don't actually have any morals. They don't have any, solid anything that they stand on. They don't have a moral framework. They don't have information on their side. They don't have science on their side. All they can do is make up bullshit to make things. And then, as we have seen with the ICE situation, they will just get on TV and lie and lie and lie directly to the American public's face, regardless of the truth of the situation, because all they need to do is repeat the talking points until people stop arguing with them. And that's been proven. Have you seen the report that conservatism is caused by an enlarged amygdala? I didn't. Can you send me that? With how many grown men are mad about trans girls and youth sports, it makes me wonder what the motive is. Are they afraid they might be diversity in the girls they're creeping on? Yeah, right? We have to be careful about the high school girls. I might accidentally think someone with a penis is attractive, some 16-year-old that I'm coaching in fucking volleyball because I am a 50-something-year-old man training teenage girls in how to play volleyball, a thing that I know a lot about. It really does a lot of the time, and this is really gross to think about, but it's worth bringing up But so many of these arguments always boil down to, but I might think that they're attractive and I don't want to have sex with a trans person, so they can't have rights. And like, I cannot even begin to explain how much that is not something that we should be basing legal decisions about whether or not someone is allowed to exist in public life on. We just should not be doing that based on whether Joe fucking nobody from Minnesota thinks that trans people shouldn't, you know, I don't care if Brett Kavanaugh doesn't want to have sex with a trans girl. Let's just assume for the sake of argument, yes, that no trans person would ever have sex with someone like Brett Kavanaugh. Let's just assume. You know, I think that that's probably a safe assumption that we could make, is that no trans person would ever want to touch them. But, you know, it is just an assumption, since we're just assuming things. Open this. Ooh. Okay, I will go over this afterwards. That looks very interesting. Alright. Let them all play, I agree. Save women's sports. Fucking, you do not care about women's sports. It's just, it's so disingenuous because it's such a surface level observation to me to say, like, trans people will obviously have some kind of biological advantage. Because first of all, again, we're like, does that mean that trans men are just going to be better than non-trans men, than cis men at the sports because they're taking testosterone? Is that giving them an unfair advantage and they're just gonna be better than every man? Are they going to be worse? Like, it doesn't take trans men into the equation, which is often an issue with these sort of things. And on top of that, none of it holds up under any scrutiny. It is just a surface level opinion that is based entirely on the vibes that you personally think that women will always lose to men in a sport that you are thinking of. Which is just not true. Denying a special accommodation to trans-identifying individuals does not discriminate on the basis of sex or gender identity, or deny equal protection. All of that remains true, even assuming a man could take drugs that eliminate his sex-based physiological advantages. Not what's happening. Not men. Fucking gross. Not what's happening. And they don't eliminate their sex-based physiological, and it's not advantages, sex-based physiological differences, but it mitigates them. And in fact, and again, we're going to get to this, but there is evidence to suggest that when you take estrogen and your muscle density lowers, because that's what happens, your muscles get weaker, your muscle density goes down. You have less muscle mass, less muscle density, and therefore it is harder to move your larger frame, and you actually have a disadvantage if you've gone through male puberty and you're taking estrogen in sports most of the time. Yeah, anybody that has taken estrogen will tell you about the fact that your muscles get weaker after a certain amount of time, like noticeably weaker, in a way that sometimes catches you off guard when you try to lift something and you're like, oh, okay, what the fuck happened to me? Okay. Conservative Justice Samuel Alito asked Hartnett to address some of the concerns expressed about transgender women athletes. There are an awful lot of female athletes who are strongly opposed to participation by trans athletes in competitions with them, Alito said. What do you say about them? Are they bigots? Yes, they are. They are bigots. I'm sorry to say, but yes, they are bigots because they have not done the internal calculation to actually understand the issue and are just making a vibes-based decision. That's what bigotry is. Are they deluded in thinking they are subjected to unfair competition? Yes, They are deluded. That is just what's happening, and you are saying it out loud. Like, yes, the answer is yes. Hartnett says she would not call them that. I don't care. You're wrong. Like, that's not correct. You are wrong. I think more of the time we need to be ready to just tell conservatives that they're fucking lying and that they're wrong and the things they're saying are not correct or true. Because a lot of the time they're not. They don't know what they're talking about. They're just repeating talking points, and they don't have, when actually pushed to demonstrate evidence, they will prove your point that they don't know what they're fucking talking about. And someone repeating "do your own research" at you is not actually proving anything. That is shifting the burden of proof onto someone who is not making a claim. Because again, if my claim is like, your claim is that trans people are, you know, whatever. Watching debate where conservatives get floored when they actually come across someone knowledgeable is so funny. Yes, absolutely. I love it when people call into shows so convinced they're just going to be able to gish gallop over somebody and say a bunch of talking points, and they're just going to get, you know, they're going to Ben Shapiro them or whatever at like... Anyway. You don't legislate based on undifferentiated fears. I mean, yeah. I don't know what they're fucking saying. The court in 2020 delivered a landmark ruling protecting transgender people from workplace discrimination under a different law called Title, what was that, 567? Title 7, that contains wording similar to Title 9. Conservative Justice Neil Gorsuch, who authored the Title VII decision, appeared to indicate, along with some other justices, that the rationale of the Title VII ruling may not extend to Title IX, in part because of regulations adopted under a 1974 law called the Javits Amendment that allowed for sex-separated sports teams. Javits changed Title IX, and it said, you know, sports are different, and we've got these regulations that have been out there for 50 plus years. That doesn't mean that they're good. In fact, it probably means they're bad, and we need to change them, because 50 years is a long fucking time for us to find out more information, isn't it? Conservative Justice Clarence Thomas, a guy who knows a lot of things about everything and is not bought by corporate money, wondered if any difference existed between what the transgender plaintiffs are seeking and a lousy male tennis player who wants to try out for the women's team who says there is no way I'm better than the women's tennis players. There's nothing different between those things? There is nothing different. Zero things? There's no differences between those situations at all. Okay. Just so disingenuous and wrong. Obviously, one of the great successes in America over the last 50 years has been the growth of women and girls' sports, and it's inspiring, Kavanaugh said. Kavanaugh noted the federal government, certain states, the NCAA governing body for college sports, and the U.S. Olympic Committee think that allowing transgender women and girls to participate will undermine or reverse that amazing success and will create unfairness. I do not think that is what their decisions have meant. I think they are entirely dictated by current political climate and culture war issues, and in fact, we are undermining science in order to make these decisions. God, this is the centrist one. I can't wait to get to the fucking New York Post. Awesome. Just a reminder that, like, centrism is just right-leaning. I think, like, the passive voice is doing so much work here. The Supreme Court last year, in a case from Tennessee, let states ban gender-affirming medical treatments for minors. It also let Trump ban transgender people from the military and bar passport applicants from selecting the sex reflecting their gender identities for the document. Yeah, I remember. Remember when Trump just said every transgender person was unable to live a life of honor because we were fundamentally lying, I think that probably we should mention that a little more often, because that's, like, really offensive. Like, fuck all of the trans people that I know that have lived a life of honor in the military already and have, like, dedicated their lives to this country for one reason or another. You know, fuck all them. Insane. Insane bullshit to say about somebody that you have no way of knowing any of that shit about, because you just want to make blanket, vaguity statements about people that you don't know or and don't understand. It's part of why I think it's so important to, like, bring this kind of information and just be a person that has a voice in public about things like this as a trans person. When I was growing up, there was there was not a lot of public support, at least that I saw, for trans people, and there weren't a lot of people who were trans in the things that I watched, because we just weren't really that public of a community, or there wasn't a niche online at the time for people that are trans, and I think that we are starting to carve out that niche. And I just want to be a public face for these sort of things, so somebody can see that a trans person exists, is relatively normal, and, you know, has these opinions and can speak relatively eloquently on them. When your stepbrother had to go into hiding after the latest administration because he got the government-funded HRT. What? That's insane. Can you give me more information about that sometime? I would love to hear more about that. Obviously, without, you know, if we can get some information about that, I would love to. The West Virginia Challenge was brought by Becky Pepper Jackson, excuse me, and her mother. Pepper Jackson, 15, competes in shot put and discus in high school. Let's remember again, Pepper Jackson is a 15-year-old girl who has never undergone male puberty because of pubertal suppressants, does not have any of the biological advantages that the so-called trans women will definitely have. Last my family heard, he went silent somewhere in Seattle. That's insane. I'm so sorry. And also, sorry, getting back to it, Becky Pepper Jackson is the only trans woman competing in sports at the high school level in West Virginia. So this statewide ban bans one person, one girl, from playing in sports with people her age. Personally, I think that's fucking weird. And he used to be a U-Haul lesbian, so I hadn't given it much thought until I saw him 2 years post-HRT. Oh, okay. Silent Somewhere in Seattle would make a great album name. I agree. That's really cool. Alright. Peacock's 25 has decided to quit sports and sought to dismiss the case in part due to a fear of harassment and growing intolerance towards transgender people. That's so crazy. This poor fucking girl just wants to be out of the public eye, and they're not letting her. That's so fucked up. Alright. Alright, now New York Post. Let's see what... In the first case brought before the court, Lindsay Haycox, 24, was challenging Idaho's Fairness in Women's Sports Act, which restricts trans women from joining female sports teams in all state institutions from elementary school through college. Haycox, an aspiring track and cross country athlete for Boise State University, had argued the state law violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. The second case was a challenge from Becky Pepper Jackson's mother to West Virginia's Save Women's Sports Act. Pepper Jackson transitioned from male to female during the 3rd grade before going through male puberty. Before going through male puberty. Lower courts have blocked Idaho's and West Virginia's laws from going into effect, allowing Pepper Jackson to compete for her school's girls' track. It's crazy. They admit it here before going through male puberty. So what are you mad about? Like, is it just that a penis, the possession of a penis makes you better at shot put? Everyone that has a penis is better at shot put than any girl, I guess. It's just a weird thing it's a weird hill to die on, and I think it's important to keep calling these people weird. Because it's a weird thing to care about. It has +3 to aerodynamics? I actually didn't know that. I didn't know my penis had stats. You'd think with how much, like, the average trans girl is swanging, that it would actually give you a minus to aerodynamics. Do you think that the success of trans athletes in women's sports is proportional to the percentage of trans athletes who participate in women's sports? Conservative Justice Samuel Alito asked Hecox's attorney Kathleen Hartnett at one point. Hartnett contended that her team's briefs to the Supreme Court showed that it's a bit overstated, and noted that Hecox didn't make the cut at BSU. Alito also pressed Hartnett about what it means to be a boy or a girl or a man or a woman, with the attorney just declining to give a definition. That's not... Okay. So, if you want a functioning definition of what a man or a woman is, right? Say woman. A woman is someone whose internal gender aligns with their own personal schema on what a woman is in society. That's all it is. And you might say, oh, that's semantics, but let's be honest, the conservatives are the party of semantics. And it's not semantics, it's using precise language to explain a complex concept, because gender is not as easy to understand as people want you to believe it is. Just because the average cis person has never had to worry about their gender does not make it an easy concept to understand. It starts as a -1 debuff, but then per year of HRT it ramps up to +3. Okay, that makes sense. It just shrinks. Let's take, for example, an individual male who is not a good athlete, say a lousy tennis player, and wants to try out for the women's tennis team, and he said, "There is no way I'm better than the women's tennis player," conservative Justice Clarence Thomas said. "How is that different from what you're being required to do here?" he asked, referring to Idaho's law. I'll tell you why it's different, actually. It's different because those are two different situations. It's different because this is a trans person who has undergone HRT, who has changed their biological sex, as you are so fucking caught up on saying. It is not the same thing as just being bad at tennis. And again, fuck you for assuming that you're just gonna be, like, fuck you for just saying, like, bad tennis players would fit in better on the women's team. That's so fucked up. It just, again, it's like people like Riley Gaines, again, professional loser Riley Gaines, they exist to just show you. They exist to get up on stage and basically be a minstrel act that shows that women aren't just, we're just so weak, we couldn't possibly beat a man. It's just offensive. It's terrible. All of these people saw the Futurama episode where Bender joins the Fembot Olympics and thought it was a well-researched documentary, for sure. Liberal justices made sure to grill attorneys for Idaho, West Virginia, and a Trump administration lawyer defending the bans. Is treating someone who is transgender but who does not have, because of the medical interventions and the things that have been done, the same threat to physical competition and safety and all the reasons the state puts forward? That's actually a different class, says this individual. Justice Justice Ketanji Ketanji Brown Jackson, who famously declined to define a woman during her confirmation hearings in 2022. Fucking weird thing to bring up. Asked Idaho Solicitor General Alan Hurst. So you're not treating the class the same, and how do you respond to that? I mean, good question. It's weird that she didn't, like, the response to it isn't given. The West Virginia case has been a top athlete. What do you mean top athlete? I need proof of that. Records. Show me, like, shot put. Show me that she's one shot put. Shot put. Yeah. Wins by more than 3 feet. What do you mean by records show? Show me that. Okay, so she's, what, women's middle school shot put, 6 pounds? She's, again, hasn't gone through male puberty, does not have the muscle density of a male. I mean, this just, to me, says she's better than them? Is this literally just one? Have we seen more? Can we see more of this girl's competitions? So weird that we have to do this, by the way. 2nd, 9th, 2nd, 1st, 5th, 3rd, 8th, 2nd, 7th, 1st, 2nd, 1st, 2nd, 4th, 3rd. I don't know, dude. It sounds like she's just a normal athlete who might be kind of good at it. Like, she's not winning all of the time. She's winning sometimes, just like an athlete does. It's weird that we're just pulling one of them, right? Like, okay, so she, on April 26th, she got first. On April 9th, she got first. But what about where she got 8th in the shot put? Or 9th? Or 5th? Or 3rd? Like, these are not insane records. She is winning some of them. Probably because she's practicing really hard and getting good at it. Amazing, right? Incredible. And I don't even fucking care about sports. Used Title IX as the basis for his executive order last year targeting states that allow transgender women to compete in women's sports. Consistently a good athlete and works hard, yeah. I threw shot put, and like I wasn't very good at it, but it was like, it's hard. If they're right about the fact, then we should lose. Don't say that. And they're just using it. But they're not right about the facts. The case should be kicked to the lower court. It was in the lower courts, and the lower courts said it was unconstitutional. That's why it's in the Supreme Court. This is nothing. This means nothing. Everyone in the case should have to compete against this 15-year-old girl in shot put. You have to beat her. If you want to ban her from it, you have to beat her at shot put. I want to see Brett Kavanaugh competing against a 15-year-old girl in shot put and getting his fucking ass kicked. Heading into the arguments, many experts were carefully watching conservative Justice Neil Gorsuch, who shocked observers 5 years ago in Bostock versus Clayton County by joining the liberal minority in finding that employees can sue for discrimination over sexual orientation and gender identity under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act. Back then, Gorsuch had famously been quiet during oral arguments, and conservatives had a 5-4 majority. Now they have a 6-3 majority, and on Tuesday, Gorsuch was quite vocal, pressing all sides. I've been wondering what's straightforward after all this discussion, Gorsuch grumbled at one point during a technical exchange about what type protected class transgender individuals might be after Hartnett said she was trying to find a straightforward answer for the High Court. Unfortunately, this is not a straightforward thing. Like, you cannot just look... Like, I'm so sorry, but if you are a Supreme Court justice, you really shouldn't be looking for a straightforward way out of something, right? That's your fucking job. Your fucking job. I'm so sorry, but your job is to decide the complicated things that needed to make it to you. Like, that's what you do. This is the first time the Supreme Court has had to address the culture war issue of transgender competition in women's sports. No, it's not. That's wrong. Though last year it ruled that states can ban transgender treatments for minors, which is fucked up. That's really fucked up. They don't have a right to healthcare. They don't have a right to decide. Their doctors... I think truly any decision that means that the decisions for what a person's health, like what the decisions that are being made about a person's physical or mental health are taken out of the hands of the doctors that are looking over their cases and are instead decided by legislators, insurance companies, or law, or anything like that, or judges, or whatever, right? That's fucking weird. We should not be litigating whether or not somebody can get the help that they need, that the doctors around them have decided that they need. The experts around them and their parents and them have all decided that it is something that they want and need. It's just weird. Alright. With those articles out of the way, I do want to bring up the facts of the matter. This is an NIH PubMed from PubMed Central, from the National Library of Medicine, called Fairness for Transgender People in Sport by Joshua D. Safer. We'll start with the abstract and we'll just go down. Increasingly visible participation by transgender people in athletic competition has resulted in efforts to include transgender women in the women's categories while addressing possible advantage they might have from exposure to typically male levels of testosterone. There does not seem to be any reason to expect advantage for transgender people prior to puberty of or for transgender people whose gender-affirming treatment begins at the onset of puberty. To date, the only established driver of athletic advantage in men over women is testosterone. Further, the existing literature suggests that treatment to lower testosterone may be sufficient to erase that advantage in at least some athletic activities. Whether other aspects of puberty are advantages or disadvantages in certain sports remains to be established. Because again, we're not going to talk in certainty in science. We're always going to leave room for doubt, which again, these sort of people will use as some kind of lever to say like, see, they're not sure. They're talking wishy-washy about it. They're not sure about it. But like, that's just how science is written. There is need for more research on the topic. I agree, because again, a majority of the irreplaceable research that was done into transgender health was destroyed by the Nazis. In addition, there is a need to prioritize the need to motivate people to participate in sport for better health. So that's just, we should be encouraging people to play sports. So maybe we should be a little less of an asshole to people that are trans who want to play sports because it's good for them. The greater visibility of transgender people has resulted in raised awareness surrounding the inclusion of transgender people in competitive sport. The focus has been on the participation of transgender women in female-only sports divisions due to a concern for possible residual athletic advantage from a history of a typical male purity. Transgender men have not been the source of concern, both because the male category in sports can often be considered an open category, which is fucking crazy, and because the testosterone treatment could be subject to the existing therapeutic use exemption process already in place for other men requiring testosterone treatment. Okay, so just trans men aren't part of the argument, I guess, because it just wouldn't be convenient for them. That's weird. But, you know, you'd think that both sides of it would, like, you know, suddenly it's an individual case, right? Because there are some cis boys who might need testosterone treatment, and if we mitigate testosterone treatment, then, you know, it might ruin their chances of participating in sports. Because we ought to look out for the cis boys. As those among us endocrinologists who focus on weight management and diabetes know well, for most of the population, our biggest athletics-related concern is how to motivate people to participate. Transgender people are likely at greater risk of failing to participate in exercise than average, so that opportunities to motivate transgender people to engage in athletic activity would be anticipated to be a major health priority. That's a really interesting point, actually, in that, like, sports are really good for you to participate in, and if we're already struggling to get the average cis person to participate, maybe we shouldn't be abusing trans people who just want to fucking play sports to lose some weight. A possible tension exists because of the observation that, on average, cisgender boys and men have better performance outcomes in athletics than do cisgender girls and women. The performance difference has resulted in the establishment of female-only divisions for sport participation where girls and women can safely compete and reliably win events. The female-only divisions are a major factor to encourage greater participation of girls and women in sport with a goal of equal participation rates. Again, I think that maybe there should be a different distribution instead of sex-based, but like that is not for my decision. That, like, I am not an endocrinologist, I am not a scientist who studies sports, I am not a sports player. Ultimately, sports are not fair. Like, sports are a competition, and if you want to beat people at the sport that you're playing, you just have to be better at the sport you're playing, more times than not. So, this is simply a non-issue to me. And, like, if you are the kind of person who's just gonna get demotivated because there's a chance you're gonna play against a trans person, then you've been raised as a bigot, and you need to, like, break that. Like, children can be bigots, too, not because of, like, any particular decision-making that they've made, but because they've been raised to be by the people in their life, by their parents, by their peers. And we should be, like, breaking that. Like, breaking them out of that and trying to encourage them all to participate in things like sports. I know, as an overweight person growing up, completely separate from being trans or anything like that, as an overweight person growing up, I was often discouraged from being in sports. I was in a sports team for a lot of my high school career, and my entire experience with it was horrible, because everyone on the team, all of the guys on the team, just made fun of me, and they just hated me, and it was fucking miserable. So I stopped as soon as I could, because it sucks. Maybe we should address why kids are so fucking evil. Maybe we should address why kids are being raised to be evil by the people in their life. I don't know. I don't know, man. Maybe America's fucked up. To date, the only established driver for the athletic differences between men and women is testosterone, first during puberty and then ongoing. For example, higher testosterone levels along with lower estrogen levels during a typical male puberty result in larger physical stature. In addition, there are bone formation differences that relate to hormone levels in puberty, such as the widened pelvis that develops during a typical female puberty. Many hormone-related physical characteristics acquired during puberty are not reversed if hormone levels are changed later in life. That is true. By contrast, muscle mass, fat distribution, and red blood cell mass are among the physical characteristics that relate to an individual's current testosterone levels. Such characteristics may indeed shift if hormone levels change. The upshot is that prior to puberty, there are no measurable athletic differences between boys and girls. Epidemiologic observations that report otherwise are confounded by societal bias and by access to athletic opportunity. That's another thing that's really worth saying, is that, like, some kids that are, you know, trained from an early age or have access to trainers, have access to greater means, are going to be able to succeed in sport, and that is something that cannot be accounted for when we're studying hormone levels. Thus, there is no reason for transgender children who are pre-pubertal to do anything other than to participate in sport in the sex category that makes sense for them socially. Similarly, there would not be a reason to predict measurable athletic advantages accruing to transgender people who receive puberty blockers at the onset of puberty and then hormone treatment aligned with gender identity afterward. So again, the only thing that is separating this poor fucking girl in West Virginia from her cisgender competitors, that are her cisgender peers, is the fact that she has a penis. Presumably. Like, again, weird thing to have to think about is a 15-year-old's genitals, but that's the only difference. At least where it regards sports. And again, unless we're getting a +3 to aerodynamics, like chat was saying, I'm not really sure what biological advantage that gives us. The upshot is that prior to puberty, there are, sorry, that is, I already read that. The questions arise most with transgender women who begin hormone treatment after puberty. The situation includes most trans feminine people because it is most common to undergo endogenous puberty prior to seeking medical interventions appropriate to gender identity. I think that is something that can be mitigated, but ultimately I think may always be the case that you simply are, maybe not always, we can dream of a better world, right? Where people are able to be like screened for this at a young age and are able to be given the help that they need so they don't have to go through endogenous puberty if they don't want to, but it is something that, you know, can't, excuse me, you know, we are likely to, at least for most of the future, to see that most trans people have already gone through endogenous puberty and are experiencing dysphoria because it is one of the most common symptoms of being, of having a transgender identity. Hello? There is societal bias that superior athletic performance will be observed for transgender women who have gone through a typical male puberty in the past, even if they are treated with gender-affirming hormones afterward. However, existing peer-reviewed research for athleticism among transgender people is limited to small studies of sit-ups, push-ups, and medium-distance running, which suggested athleticism that correlates broadly with current testosterone levels after some period of years. Notably, the data to date does not include evidence of athletic advantage from historical puberty among transgender women while on standard testosterone lowering regimens for multiple years. So that is important to say that the data to date shows that the average trans woman that has undergone endogenous puberty but has been on HRT for a number of years does not possess advantages in most areas of sport. And in fact, here in the next sentence it's saying it is possible that larger physical stature may be an advantage for some sports, but it is also possible that a person with larger stature from a typical male puberty but with smaller muscle mass due to a testosterone lowering regimen might suffer an athletic disadvantage. These are things that could be studied more and probably will be in the coming years, but it is a societal misconception that the average person that has gone through male puberty, regardless of condition, will always be better at sports. That is just not true. The evidence that we have, the evidence that they are so, you know, insistent that we do not have, the evidence shows that is not the case. At elite levels of competition like the Olympics, rulemaking began in 2003 with 2 goals. Do all trans people have gender dysphoria? No. It is not necessary to have gender dysphoria, but it is one of the most common symptoms of having a transgender identity is that you experience some kind of dysphoria. In fact, a lot of trans people, once they come out and come to terms with the fact that they're trans, will realize a lot of the discomfort that they were feeling that they didn't want to assign to dysphoria was actually a dysphoric feeling that they didn't have the words to explain. It is common to have gender dysphoria, but it is not necessary. And it is important to say that it is not necessary because some people will not say that they have dysphoria or would say that they don't have dysphoria until they have a better understanding of what euphoria feels like. Yeah, there you go. There's a person in the chat. Thank you, 80. How many people have it? We can look into that actually. We're not gonna look at the AI. We can try Bright Path. Let's go to the NIH. Changing demographics in transgender individuals seeking hormonal therapy. Are trans women more common than trans men? I don't know if that actually going to cover it, but we can open it. Okay, I don't know if this is what we want. Yeah, we wish, okay, and truly, again, this is something I mentioned earlier, I don't know if you just jumped in, but a lot of, like, there were studies on these sort of things. We had a wealth of information in a German medical institute. That famous picture that you've probably seen of the Nazis burning books is them burning transgender medical records. Irreplaceable evidence, irreplaceable research done over decades. Transgender, like, surgeries, gender affirming surgery is older than heart surgery. Key takeaways here saying 1.4 million American adults identify as transgender, with about 0.6% of adults experiencing gender dysphoria. So, this is 0.6% of all adults experience gender dysphoria. 73% of trans women and 78% of trans men first experience gender dysphoria by age 7. So it's looking like roughly 75%, if I had to guess. It is more common to have gender dysphoria because, again, it is a symptom of an overarching condition, which, like, gender dysphoria is something that you can actually get. It's not a disease, but it's a symptom. It's a diagnosis, right? It is a discomfort because that is what dysphoria means. It is just discomfort with the perception, your internal perception of your gender does not match your physical appearance, and that causes distress. I think that is 0.6% of all adults. So, at least based on this. Gender dysphoria diagnosis among all US youth. So, like, yeah. So it has gone up because we've gotten better at diagnosing it over time. I think that's roughly what we're saying. At least that's roughly what I'm seeing from this specific article. Either way, I wanna get back on topic for now. No problem. I'm happy to answer questions, but I wanted to get back to the specifics about the misconceptions about sports. At elite levels of competition like the Olympics, rulemaking began in 2003 with 2 goals. The first goal was to include transgender people in competition as part of an overarching inclusive Olympic and other elite international athletic organizations theme that people worldwide could find athletic role models in order to be encouraged to engage in physical activity. The standards for diagnosing gender dysphoria are lower too. Yeah, that's absolutely true. We are, like, you used to have like, I think 2 separate letters of referral from psychologists saying that you had gender dysphoria. I think also you couldn't be diagnosed as trans if you were a trans lesbian or a trans gay man. You could only if you transitioned and then were straight were you considered truly trans, which is another completely ridiculous situation. There are just so many misconceptions. It's part of the fact that, like, we can't say that trans people need to have gender dysphoria, because that is trans medicalism. It is the idea that you need to have a medical condition to be considered trans, or that transness is somehow a medical issue. There are medical parts of your transition, but being trans does not necessitate medical intervention. You can choose to live with, if you have, say, or if you don't have dysphoria, you can just choose to live as the opposite gender if you want. It's not like it is. They want, people that don't like trans people want it to be more complicated, and they want it to be like something that you can easily define and easily diagnose. But it is not something that matches that kind of description. It is not a disease. It is not a disorder. It is simply an identity. Something that is core to your internals. Something that we understand individually as a person. Our concept of our gender identity. In the same way that we understand things like love, right? Like, I can't tell you that the way that you love someone is wrong because it's not the way that I would count love as that, right? We can debate the ethics of it, or we can debate the individuals of it, but ultimately it is a subjective human experience that we don't really have the right to declare that someone else is doing right or wrong. Yeah, if you live as the opposite gender, then you're trans, doesn't matter the reason. I think that's totally fair. And it is, again, it's personal identification. Like, one person, like some non-binary people don't consider themselves trans, and that's fine. Like, ultimately, that's fine. It is categorization thing. Humans are naturally primed to be really good at putting things into categorized boxes, but sometimes things are just not easy to fit into those things. And a lot of the thing that is important about social categories, like man and woman, is that if you want to exclude people from those categories, there needs to be a necessary thing, and a necessary condition they're not meeting that allows them to be excluded from that category. And often, when pressed on what exactly separates a woman and a man, conservatives tend not to be able to actually explain themselves, because it is not a simple thing that can be said, well, oh, you have chromosomes, oh, you have a vagina, oh, you have this or that, because there are situations where that isn't the case. And you might say, oh, that's just corner cases, but those corner cases matter because those are real people. Like, those are people that have a right to fit into a category. I don't know. I mean, I do know. I don't know why I said I don't know. I know exactly. I'm very confident, in fact. The second goal fits the theme that competition is fair. Second goal has been to mitigate a systematic unfair advantage that transgender women might enjoy if they underwent typically male puberty historically. Because testosterone is the only established driver relevant to athletic performance that differs between men and women, the most recent elite athletic guidance has been narrowed to testosterone levels. Guidance from the International Olympic Committee and some of the international athletic federations, including World Athletics, have suggested maximum testosterone levels acceptable for participation in a female-only category. Typically, total testosterone cut points of 5, I think it's nanomoles per liter and 10 nanomoles per liter have been used with athletes mandated to have achieved those levels for some time period prior and to maintain those levels at all times going forward. Such thresholds are considered to be fair to transgender women because they are well above the 1.7 nanomoles per liter target testosterone threshold in medical treatment guidelines. So most trans women, which again, this is always about trans women because trans men do not fit into their narrative. Trans men and their use of testosterone does not fit into the easily diagnosable, categories that they want to give us. But the average trans woman is never going to meet these cutoff points if they have been on HRT for years. And again, we have shown that testosterone is the only difference between men and women athletes. Collegiate sport and high school sport sit between elite international level competition and sports among prepubertal children. The National Collegiate Athletic Association mandates that transgender women be treated with hormone-lowering medical regimens for at least 1 year. The societal priorities at the scholastic level can be complicated. For example, as children enter puberty at the scholastic level, should the need to encourage athletic participation win out over the possibility of evolving athletic advantages from testosterone? If advantage from testosterone is demonstrated, does society want to implement rules that may indirectly coerce transgender children to begin medical regimens prior to their being ready, and that they might never actually choose otherwise? That's another interesting point, that it might actually encourage people to transition and when they're not ready to do so, or when the doctors haven't decided they're ready. You got 0.7 nanomoles, but would still have an unfair advantage? I don't know what you mean by that. Do you think trans women in women's sports is a good policy from an optics point of view? Is there broad support for it in the US? I think I said this earlier, but trans people in sports is a wedge issue. It is an easy win because it is easy to sell people that are uneducated on the topic. The fact that trans women specifically will always have a biological advantage because of a testosterone-based puberty, which again, the evidence shows is not the case. They want to push into this area of discrimination based on sex because it is the only difference between a cisgender person playing sports and a trans person playing sports who has been undergoing either pubertal suppressants or HRT. They just will not have the evidence shows they will not have those advantages that people think that they will. They are trying to push in a wedge that shows that we can discriminate against trans people based on their sex in order to then further their agendas into other areas of law like Title IX protections at large. I don't think the evidence is conclusive. You're wrong. Sorry. You're just wrong. That's not correct, and that's disingenuous based on this fucking article that we're reading. This is the NIH. Please let me know if it wants to stop topic, but I was curious, what's your view as a trans person on social security numbers? Since sex is unchangeable, it's uneven number for men and women, legally be able to change as your gender. I don't really have I think that social security numbers in general are a really stupid way to like mandate a person's existence under law. There are better systems. I think that the social security number system in general is kind of stupid and like poorly organized. Like, you shouldn't be able to steal someone's identity just because you know a number that is them. I don't really care ultimately about if my social security number says I'm a man. It's like a weird thing for me personally to care about because it doesn't really affect me, right? Sex and gender are different. Yes, sex and gender are different things. They have a correlation and they are, they touch each other. They are important to each other, but they are not the same thing. And unfortunately, there is a colloquialism that's been used that sex and gender are identical because it's easier to explain. And usually, colloquially, we can use them interchangeably. But the truth of the matter is that those two things are not the same thing. I think it's important to say, like, this again, the NIH saying here, there is societal bias that superior athletic performance will be observed for transgender women who have gone through a typical male puberty in the past, even if they're treated with gender-affirming hormones. However, existing peer-reviewed research for athleticism among transgender people is limited to small studies of these, things, but the data to date does not include evidence of athletic advantage from historical puberty among transgender women while on standard testosterone-lowering regimens for multiple years. These are just the evidence that has been taken just does not show that. And we would have more evidence, again, if the Nazis didn't fucking destroy it all. That is why we have a drought of evidence that they are able to call to and say, like, oh, it's all new research. It's all a new thing. As if transgender medicine hasn't been happening for centuries, for decades. And we have had research on these things. If it's limited, the evidence isn't conclusive. How much evidence specifically would you need to change your mind? What would change your mind? I want you to really think about that. What information would you need to be provided that shows that, because we've already got conclusive evidence on this, what would you need to see to change your mind? Would you ever change your mind? Because if not, that might be something you have to think about. There's a study by Joanna Harper that suggested some remaining strength advantage after 3 years on estrogen. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. It's not important to me, ultimately. These things are not that important. Sports should be encouraged for everyone to participate in because it's good for your body. And we should allow people to participate in sports on teams that make sense for them. Right? If we need to refit the way that people are competing in sports, I personally advocate for a more co-ed approach that's based on things like weight classes and maybe even testosterone levels between men and women, because those vary too. Sometimes there are women that have naturally high testosterone levels and are therefore barred from competing at high levels simply because of something that they cannot control unless they undergo medical procedures to lower the advantage of testosterone. Like, those things don't matter. If you are discriminating, because that is what this is. It is sex-based discrimination. You are choosing to not allow a group of people to participate in sports based on their sex assigned at birth. That is sex-based discrimination and it is protected under Title IX. And again, we see things like there is no... how do you get women to broadly accept male people who've transitioned to their teams? I don't care. You fucking teach kids to not be bigots. I don't care. If you don't want trans people on your team, you're a bigot and you need to stop. The facts exist, and if you are choosing to not be accepting of them, then you are being stupid. Why do they want to be in women's sports? Because why would a cis woman want to play women's sports? To be around other women, dicknuts. To be around women. They're women. They want to be around other women because women like to socialize with other women. And if we're going to be doing a social activity like playing sports, you want to be around people in your fucking social group, you moron. What do you mean? I'm so sorry, but that doesn't make any sense. They could go compete in men's categories, and in fact, they said in this NIH review that most men's categories can be considered an open category. So women are allowed to participate in men's sports, but for some reason, men are not allowed to participate in women's sports. And again, the difference is sex. It is your sex assigned at birth, and it is discrimination based on their sex. That's not the same thing, and you know it. You're being disingenuous. Those are not the same thing. Those are two completely different things, and you're being an idiot. Like, that's not the same. You just want to be around women? Yeah, because, like, I'm a woman, and I want to hang out with women, because men suck. Not all the time, but a lot of men suck. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Did you really just think that was a gotcha? That's embarrassing. You prefer the company of men? I fucking bet you do. I fucking bet you do, dude. I prefer the company of men. Yeah, dude, I know. I can tell from the way that you typed that. Holy shit. You can't write jokes that funny. What's going on in here? I'm laughing at people that are trying to convince me trans people don't deserve to be in sports. It's a YouTube chat also. Sorry, I still don't have a way for it to end up on screen, and I actually don't think it's allowed to stream on Twitch if I'm also showing the YouTube chat, but I can read the YouTube chat. Do women tend to be convinced to accept trans women into their sports by being told they're bigots if they don't? Most women, and this is so fucking real for you. I'm gonna be so real for you. Most women don't care about trans people. They just accept them. Most women in the world just accept trans women. The most accepting group of people for trans people are cis lesbians, because they just understand that femininity and womanhood is entirely a social construct. It's women's sports you're not sold on specifically. You don't care about women's sports, and if you do, you're being weird about it. Okay, but that's because the UK is full of fucking weirdos. Like, the UK is exceptionally transphobic. So that is a weird... Also, the BBC is exceptionally transphobic. Like, that's like saying the New York Times said something transphobic, as if I'm supposed to take that as evidence. What the fuck are you talking about? Obviously, they said that. If you're allowed to just like say that my evidence doesn't matter because I have a bias or whatever, then I am allowed to say the same thing. It really isn't? Okay. Well, prove it. Prove that the UK isn't transphobic. Prove that the BBC isn't transphobic. You are making a claim. Provide me evidence. In fact, if you like, I can set my call-in number and you can come and you can talk to me about this and we can have a nice one-on-one conversation. Would you like that? The BBC get accused of being pro-trans by the right here? That's not evidence. I don't give a shit. The right will accuse anybody of anything that furthers their goals. They're a bunch of fucking liars. The UK government is literally funded by J.K. Rowling, who is one of the most transphobic people alive. Yeah, absolutely. Look, dude, I'll be totally real with you. The BBC captured by the trans cult, allegedly. Stop putting X's in your sentences. Kind of annoying. All right. Maybe now is a good time to read this article that Azzy sent me about how conservatism in the neural circuitry of threat. Economic conservatism predicts greater amygdala BNST connectivity during periods of threat versus safety. Ooh. I'll be super real with you. I'm not listening to anything that you say on this stuff because you've proven yourselves to be intellectually dishonest in this discussion. Political conservatism is associated with an increased negativity bias, including increased attention and reactivity towards negative and threatening stimuli. Although the human amygdala has been implicated in the response to threatening stimuli, no studies to date have investigated whether conservatism is associated with altered amygdala function towards threat. Furthermore, although an influential theory posits that connectivity between the amygdala and bed nucleus of the stria terminalis is important in initiating the response to sustained or uncertain threat, whether individual differences in conservatism modulate this connectivity is unknown. To test whether conservatism is associated with increased reactivity in neural threat circuitry, we measured participants' self-reported social and economic conservatism and asked them to complete high-resolution fMRI scans while under threat of an unpredictable shock and while safe. We found that economic conservatism predicted greater connectivity between the BNST and a cluster of voxels in the left amygdala during threat versus safety. These results suggest that increased amygdala BNST connectivity during threat may be a key neural correlate of the enhanced negativity bias found in conservatism. I should open up to other perspectives more? No. No, I won't. Because nobody has ever provided me worthwhile evidence that suggests that I should for some reason turn against the people in my life that have always proven to be the best people in my life, and instead should listen to a bunch of weirdos who care way too much about teenage girls in sports and their genitals that they have in their pants. Fix your hearts or die. I agree. I would like it to be said that you are jumping in here after having no further... You've never seen me before. You've never been in here before. But you're in here after an hour or so of me reading through a left-leaning, a center-leaning, and a right-leaning coverage of the same exact story. So I am very open to alternative perspectives. I listen to conservative people talk. I watch Fox News. I watch... I keep myself very well informed, because if I am going to disagree with something, I better fucking know the facts. That is my personal philosophy. If I'm going to disagree with something, if I'm going to try to say that I understand something, I better actually fucking understand it. And I want to be so fucking for real with you right now. I don't think you understand what you're fucking talking about. I think you are coming in here with a surface level understanding, and you are trying to tell me something that you do not know anything about. You are operating on vibes, and you need to fix your heart. I don't mean read media, I mean engage with people. I talk to conservatives all the fucking time. I just think they're all stupid, because the things that they say and the actions that they take prove to me that they're stupid. I think we should start throwing fake babies at ICE. I don't know about that one. So eat my dick and hair, I guess. I'm not going to talk to someone who is clearly intellectually dishonest and wants to come in here and just spout nonsense, as if I don't engage with the alternative opinion, as if I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, as if that's not what I do constantly to keep myself informed. So eat my shit and hair. Either way. Are trans women more common than trans men? I don't think so. But consistently greater prevalence of trans women. Interesting. Shit and hair. I think it's really difficult. These are things that are really difficult to study precisely because it is such a complicated situation. Wow, they say, as if I don't fucking, as if I just need to debate me. Fuck off. I'm not gonna fucking talk to you. I don't want to talk to you. I'm like, if you want to call me a scumbag, fucking do it. I am a scumbag. I don't give a shit. I'm not talking to you because I don't think you are, first of all, you have proven in the things you've typed that you are not ready to have this conversation and will attempt to just gish gallop over me with all of your fucking talking points that you've memorized. You don't know what you're talking about. I have shown you the evidence. I have shown you the things on stream. I have read them, and I don't want anything to do with you. It's lower because of a bunch of societal pressures. I actually think that that's what this covers. We've seen a steady increase in the number of FTMs such that the incidence now equals that of MTF in the last 25 years. So there is evidence. I'm wondering why you're so hostile, because ICE is killing people on the streets, and the only thing that conservatives seem to care about is banning one trans girl from participating in sports at the fucking middle school level. One girl in West Virginia is the only transgender athlete, and she is being barred by a statewide ban, and I think that's extremely stupid, extremely unethical, and extremely unbased in reality and fact that we can observe. And, like, they are using these culture war wedge issues to rile people up and then recruit the kinds of barbarians and savages that are willing to strap up and go jackbooting through the streets and abduct people that they don't like. And let me be so fucking for real. If Renee Good can be shot dead on the street, shot 3 times in the face and told she's a fucking bitch, then that can happen to me too. That can happen to you. That can happen to any of us. And all they have to do is decide that you are an enemy of the state in the moment. And by being a trans person, I am objectively an enemy of the state. You're not sold on the idea that male people can compete fairly with females. Look into it better, I guess. It's like, again, the NIH is right here. There are this is not the only study on this. This is just one of the reliable ones I pulled up. You so fucking, like, the right tends to be so much in the camp of do your own research. There is no evidence that a person who has not experienced a testosterone-based puberty because of transgender intervention, someone who was on pubertal suppressants and then was on HRT, which is the situation for the girl in West Virginia, there is no evidence to suggest that she has a biological advantage, because the only difference between male and female participants in sport is testosterone levels. And it is studied that at, like, later levels, like say the collegiate level, where someone has discovered their trans later in life and has then been on HRT for like years, there are regulations in place to prove that these sort of, and again, sports are not fair. Sports are not supposed to be fair. It is a competition. If you are losing to a trans person at sports, get better at sports. What about old men that want to be with young women? They're creepy. Age is different. Can cis men with low T compete in women's sports? If we are saying no, we aren't. No, that is not the same thing, and you know it. Like, that's not the same thing. studies are just a part of it. No, studies are all of it. Studies are the facts. The rest of it is just vibes. It's just people's personal opinion, and I don't base my like reality on people's opinions. I base my opinions on the observed reality that is brought to us by science. I know it might be shocking, but you know. Okay. I've been yelling myself into a circle about this. Ultimately, I believe I have shown the evidence. Okay. Ugh, I need to take a few minutes. I will be right back, and I will leave you with some music for now. What about results from competitions? Yeah, the trans people don't overwhelmingly succeed in competitions either. We were literally just looking at the girl that is being banned in West Virginia, and she won some of her shot puts, but most of them she didn't. Okay, so again, if we're separating sports by sex, if we're separating sports by gender, the gender categories are social. It is then an attempt to say, like, because most women are cis, we then need to attempt to mitigate for trans women that may have an advantage. But once that is mitigated, and once that is accounted for, then there is no reason that they cannot participate. And again, if a man with low testosterone competes against a woman in a co-ed sport, like, that's fine. I don't care. It's sports. I don't care. But it is, again, a social situation where these two people are in a social situation and they're in a social category with each other. So women's sports exist for a social reason, not just for fairness. What? What is the... Oh, oh, okay. The goal is fairness. The world isn't fair. Grow up. Like, I don't care if sports are not fair. Like, I don't care if sports are fair. That is just not what sports are. Sports aren't fair. You are always competing. We can, again, mitigate and create classes, but I would argue that, again, differentiations based on sex are not actually what we see. The only differentiation is based on testosterone. So perhaps we should have testosterone-based classes a lot like we have weight classes in wrestling. But that, again, I am not the person who decides these things. The people who decide it, who are paid money to figure this shit out because they know it better than I do, have already decided this, and we are suddenly deciding that that's not enough because vibes. Even though the research shows otherwise, even though the information that they have and the experts that are deciding this stuff have already made this decision. They have to be at least somewhat fair. I don't care. I genuinely don't care about sports, but again, it's a wedge issue. These things are sex-based discrimination. And if we can, if trans people lose the right to participate in gender-based categories in sport, then they can be discriminated against in gender-based categories elsewhere. And that is not acceptable. I literally just talked about that. I talked about weight classes and differentiations and things like that. I think Michael Phelps should get his medals taken away. He's genetically advantaged. I don't know, if you're saying that we need to be fair, why you would feel like you were cheating if you did it? That's wrong. You're wrong. You're not correct. You are just wrong, and you are basing that entirely on vibes, and that is wrong. It would be embarrassing. I don't care. You're embarrassing. Why would a woman want to do things with women? That's crazy. That's a fucking ridiculous question that you just asked, and I get it was rhetorical, but I don't care. Why would a woman want to hang out with women? I don't know, maybe because, like, they're women and they want to hang out with other women? Believe it or not, the average woman does not actually want to socialize with men. Crazy. It's unfeminist. Shut up. You don't know what feminism is. You're wrong. You're just wrong. Either way, I do need to take a break real quick, and I'll be right back. I don't have to argue with you. You are wrong. Lots of women have male friends. Oh my fucking god. Whatever, dude. Grow up. I'll be back. I have a question for you, Ms. Chief. Do you just think that, like, no women want to do shot posts? You just don't think that any women want to do shot put? It's not very feminine? It's not very feminine to do shot put? I don't fucking care.
Wait, sorry, was that the person?
Huh?
Was that the person talking about?
Yeah, who were you the one that was talking about feminism earlier, or was that the fucking other person? Unfeminist. That's unfeminist. Yeah, well, that's the whole thing. Is this whole argument is reducing women to stereotypes as if they're not, like, they're saying it's more complicated than that, but they're not, like, actually taking the evidence about the complications. They're just saying the things that they want it to be complicated like that. Again, your personal experience, that's great. You have your personal anecdotal experience, but that's actually not facts. That is an outlier. That is not the way it normally is. I don't care if you're stronger than most women you know. Also, there are strong women. Like, I don't care. Like, that doesn't mean anything. You're also just telling me. That's not studied. That's not Like, when you're saying it's just how it is on paper, when that's just how it is on paper, that's how it is in the real world. We are just averaging out in a study. That is what that means. You're being ridiculous. Blair White copycat? Okay, now I gotta see. Now I definitely want to see. Let's take a look at YouTube chat. Studies can't account for a lot of things in the real world. That's fucked up. That's fucking ridiculous and stupid. I don't care about your anecdotal evidence, ma'am. I really don't. Failed lol cow farmer. Awesome. Oh, I didn't change these. Did these titles not get updated? Oh well. I don't care about anecdotal evidence. That's not real evidence. Oh my god, are you about to... Oh, did you do like a review of the line call? Oh my god, I would love to see what you have to say about that. No, I'm not looking at this on stream though. Lily Tina. Yeah. You hate the line. I'm so sorry. Like, we're never gonna get along. You're just not. I don't care. You're doing biological essentialism. Like, by saying that men and women can't compete fairly, you're doing biological essentialism, and I don't know what you're talking about. Neil Breen would spit in this person's face? I don't know about that, actually. I think that Neil Breen probably has some weirdly transphobic takes. He's just never been pressed on them. He does seem fairly socially The fact that you are calling us TERFs is ridiculous to me. I don't think you understand what that means. They can't compete fairly on an elite level. That is not correct. It is just not right. You can't be trans in a TERF. That's not correct either. You can absolutely be trans in a TERF. Alright, we're gonna definitely save your... Again, you're saying all of these things. Look at this time, look at this time, look at this time. But we're not looking at the overall. You can absolutely point out specific examples. But let's be totally honest with you. You were mentioning like the shot put with the girl that's being banned from participating in West Virginia. Like, she won a couple of her shot put things, but she lost an overwhelming majority of them. Again, if you want to pull out specific examples, there are no trans women who ever placed in the Olympics. Over all of the years they were allowed to participate and were allowed to be in the Olympics, allowed to attempt to be into the Olympics, none of them placed, ever. Trans sports is an optics nightmare? It's not. I mean, okay, it is, but only because people are uneducated. And by educating people, by showing them the actual information, by showing them studies that observe reality and take generalized information from them instead of just specific examples, that is how we form a more educated view of the overall. What do you mean that's snobbery? That's snobbery to like look at information that people you're that's ridiculous. You're being ridiculous. You're being ridiculous. That's intellectually dishonest at the very least. Do you think trans women... Okay. I don't care if this is a feudal battle. I do not care if this is a feudal battle to you. The reality of the situation is, if we give an inch here, they will take a mile. It has already been shown. Again, these like women's rights issues, women's bodily autonomy issues, and transgender issues are entirely interlinked, because if they can choose what I can do with my body, they can legislate what any woman can do with their body. You've been trans for 10 years. I don't care. Trans acceptance isn't won this way. I don't care. I don't care. This is my channel and I can do what I want. It's arrogance? Okay, I'm arrogant. Fuck you. What do you want? If we allow people to tell us that we are not allowed to exist in an area of public life, they are going to attempt to ban us from other areas in public life. That is the goal. This is a wedge that then is used to remove our Title IX protections, because that is the argument being made. It is not that trans people shouldn't be allowed in sports or whatever. The issue is that Title IX protections, which protect women from sex-based discrimination, are being threatened in this situation. And if we say that trans people are not protected by Title IX, then they aren't protected by Title IX anywhere. It doesn't matter that it's specifically sports, or that this is an optics nightmare, or whatever. This is a situation where if we let it go, it sounds stupid, but if you let it go, it gets worse. It has been shown time and time again, and especially with the thugs out on the streets that are coming door to door and demanding papers. How long before they have a list of trans people because they got a list of, they've been in the fucking social security number thing. They know if you've made an application to change your gender. I'm speculating that the plan is to... Have you read Project 2025? Have you read Project 2025? You know, the thing that they've been following exactly? The thing that Trump said he was absolutely not tied to. Let's check the progress of Project 2025. Let's check the progress. There's a whole website for it. Executive Action Tracker. Oh, all right. Yeah. Let it go, it gets better. It doesn't. And you're an idiot. It has been 1 year. Has it even been a year? It's been 1 year since Trump was elected. It was in November last year. Because it was 2024, right? Yeah. You will not win this war? I don't care. They're gonna hate us anyway, so we might as well stand up for our rights. Pride was a riot, and if you're not on our side, you're against us. I'm really fucking sorry, but you are not an ally. Like, I don't care how long you've been on estrogen. I don't care how long you claim to have, you know, whatever. I don't care if you claim you're, like, the actions that you are taking and the words that you are saying tell me that you are not an ally. You have internalized transphobia that you need to dismantle. Be better. Men and women's sports isn't a right, and you saying it that way shows me how intellectually dishonest you are, because that's not what's happening. You're not a man. Here we are, Project 2025 tracker. It has been a year, a little over a year. Project 2025 is 51% progressed. 51%. So that's really weird for somebody who claimed they had nothing to do with it. Calling yourself a man isn't self-hate. It is if you're trans. I mean, if you're not a trans man. If you're a trans woman and you're calling yourself a man, that's self-hate. That is self-loathing that you have internalized and you have swallowed, and you've decided that it's okay for you to treat yourself that way. That's not what you are. I'm just labeling you instead of engaging, as if, yeah, I haven't been engaging this whole fucking time. I have given you way more time than you needed. Like, I could have banned you. I'm here to engage. I'm engaging. You are just being intellectually dishonest. You're being a moron. I don't understand self-hatred. Trust me, bitch. I understand self-hatred. I get it. I have just gone through the actual, like, self-actualization process that allows me to overcome that and allows me to become a better person. It allows me to accept the kinds of people the kind of person that I am, and attempt to strive to make life easier for other people like me. So even though you do not agree with me, I am still trying to fight for your rights to exist. I'm just insulting you. You're saying things that deserve insults. You're saying stupid things that deserve to be called stupid so that you think about them. When you watch this later, when you watch this back later, and you get your little hate boner over it, maybe you'll actually think about the things that I said and the evidence that I provided you. Because I hate myself, I can prescribe it in others. No, I don't hate myself. I don't hate myself at all. I think I'm an awesome person. I think I have made very good strides to become a better person. I think I've made mistakes, sure, but I think all people make mistakes. Why would I watch this back? You should. You probably should. You've already been giving me plenty of engagement. I mean, you're obviously my biggest fan. Tons of people love me. And I think that after a certain amount of time, you have to start realizing that the people around you aren't always wrong. Like, I have a medical condition which makes it very difficult for my brain to create serotonin. That does not necessarily mean that I think I'm a bad person anymore. I think I have moments where I have low points, but I definitely think I am making strides to make this world a better place for people like me, which is the ultimate in good for anything that, like, we as trans people, we as humans should always be striving to educate ourselves, to prove ourselves wrong, and to better our opinions about the complicated issues that surround us, like identity. The sports thing is making our existence harder. Yeah, it is, but it's conservatives making our existence harder by taking away our rights to participate in public life. It makes us look bad, maybe, but like, if we lose here, then we lose more rights. And I'm not going to accept that. We are already banned from serving in the military because they have claimed that we are incapable of living a life of honor. The administration hates us openly. They want to eliminate transgenderism from public life. That is their stated goal. That's just rhetoric? Slippery slope fallacy? You're fucking stupid. I am sorry if the fact that I am observing the world around us and have made accurate predictions about the authoritarian regimes that are starting to overtake our life. I am sorry if I have used my brain to observe and form opinions based on the things that I actually see and the facts that I can actually intake, and the studies that I can read and the science that I can intake. I'm so sorry that that doesn't match what your vibes feel like, but that is just not reality. Trump is a dick. That's great. I don't care. Like, he is. You're right. He's a horrible pedophile. But, like... You are being ridiculous. You are being fucking ridiculous. Alright, I'm gonna I think... Actually, fuck it. Let's put on... I want to put on the Eden video about Riley Gaines. I think this is a good place for the Riley Gaines video. You haven't fallen for any propaganda. Yeah, I'm sure you're totally immune. You are totally immune to propaganda. You are the only person in the world who's actually immune to propaganda. I'm super sure of that. That sounds 100% sane and normal to think. Sorry, I'm packing my bowl. I need to smoke weed because dealing with people like this drives me insane. Quite a few people are. Yeah, okay. You will never become one of the good ones unless you detrans, true. They will, even if you detransition, you're just gonna have to make your entire life being a political pundit. Because that's the only way that you can get the validation, the external validation that you so clearly seek. Because you need to prove, like, I get that you feel the need to take in people's external opinion because you're worried about the optics of the transgender issue. That in and of itself, the transgender sports issue's optics being what you're worried about is very evident to me that you are very weak to external approval. And I get that because, I mean, you should probably look up the symptoms of complex PTSD because most trans people actually have some degree of CPTSD or OCD or something like that, because being transgender in America is unfortunately a traumatic experience, at least the way that it is currently set up most of the time. If you go through transgender youth and are forced to go through the puberty that you are not assigned, that you do not identify with, it is going to be a traumatic experience that is going to change you. You're not American? Okay, I don't care. I can only talk about my American experience. Like, what do you want from me? Sports pundit? Like Riley Gaines? Yeah. You went through male puberty, it wasn't traumatic? That's great. That's great for you. I don't care. That is your anecdotal experience does not tell me anything about the trans experience overall. I get that it wasn't maybe a big deal to you specifically, but you are not the pundit for all trans people. You don't get to speak for trans people. The only thing that can actually show us what trans people think is widely spread studies about the phenomenon. And saying that that is simply elitism or something is just anti-intellectual. And I don't fuck with that. Yeah, you're right. We're not a monolith, but there are trends and there is correct information and there is societal bias that is going to be taken out of the picture when we do larger studies. Either way, we're gonna watch this video about Riley Gaines because I think it's fucking hilarious and Eden is really funny. And I need a second to laugh a little bit because I have been frustrated thoroughly by just talking about this issue in general, because I think it is a difficult thing to talk about because it is so complicated. But again, there is no evidence to suggest that trans people possess an overwhelming sort of advantage in in sports in general that would require us to be banned or put into our own segregated category. I don't know who that is.
Hi, have you ever wondered why there is so much
I don't want to.
coverage over transgender athletes when there aren't even that many transgender people, much less athletes, in the United States to begin with? Why is such a marginal, hyper-specific group of very young people given so much national coverage when the scale of the disruption and the violence happening all around the world and internally within the United States is massive?
Your anecdotes are valid. I understand that you have a situation that you have observed, but that is not the reality. It's not Ethan, it's Eden. And I will ban you if you start dead naming people. I will do that. There. Yeah.
Shit you could be talking about. Why are we so concerned which genitals are on which division of the local collegiate tennis team in Louisville, Kentucky? Why is this the news? I don't care about this. Nobody cares about this. The public conversation around transgender athletes has been meticulously and exhaustively drug out by the right-wing media and right-wing politicians.
Ms. Goss-Graves, do women have penises?
As both a convenient and consistent distraction from war crimes occurring daily in Gaza, or even the destruction of the economy and violence happening domestically, which goes hand in hand with the dissolution of civil liberties like, freedom of speech, right to assembly, due process, among others. And don't forget, war with Iran is still very much on the table. And now the Trump administration is desperate for everyone to forget about the Epstein files.
This is 5 months ago, and it feels like this could have been released today with like the relevance of these points that she's making, and like I think that's fucking hilarious.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things, and are people still talking about this guy, this creep?
What's going on with my boys, and in some cases, gals? I don't know, I have a feeling Fox News and the right in general might just be talking about the transgender madness a little longer than you think. I went to the doctor, he said I had gender madness. It's chronic. And especially as more protests continue to manifest across the country.
That's a lazy insult.
As the approval rating continues to sink on multiple different issues, and in light of the Supreme Court's recent upholding of Tennessee's statewide ban on gender-affirming care for minors, there might even be more right-wing coverage of the trans madness than ever before, which is just what everybody wanted. There's a lot more to cover, but before I get into it, here's a quick word from today's video sponsor. Know that this conversation is bullshit. It's a wedge issue, and not to mention, there are like 12 trans athletes in the entire country, and none of the policies passed to legislate against them actually protect women or children. In fact, in many, if not all cases, it's just the opposite. These right-wing transphobic policies put women and children in danger, like institutionally. Despite that, mediocre, joyless, cynical, and desperate cisgendered women in right-wing media circles seem eager to pile on the trans women, especially when it comes to talking about athletics, because I guess they see it as an easy target to spread their dumbass agenda. One of the most prominent women at the forefront of anti-trans propaganda in sports is Riley Gaines, a former NCAA women's swimmer who one time tied for 5th place with a woman who happened to be trans, Leah Thomas. This was, of course, for Riley akin to a war crime. The NCAA didn't even have 2 5th-place trophies. She had to hold the 6th place trophy.
It was really hard for her.
The 5th place trophy later.
And honestly, I think the NCAA handled everything extremely poorly, starting from when we finished and I went behind the podium to collect my 5th place trophy.
God, she looks like she's scared.
Told me that Leah would hold the.
She always looks like she's scared.
I could pose with the 6th place trophy for photos.
And Tucker's doing his fucking. Whoa, the Tucker face.
5th place trophy in the mail.
And it's amazing that she survived this.
Yeah,
Anyway,
sorry, we're
aside
misandrists here.
I think it's important to ask the question, why sports? Of all the ways to target transgender people in America, sports is a little specific.
Professional loser Riley Gaines.
And right-wingers have deployed different tactics to get people on board with their bad faith rationalizations, like the bathroom discourse. Bringing up these hyper-specific and often perverted examples is
I actually do have an hour-long video about optics, about transgender optics, and why it's transphobic to be worried about optics in situations like this. Which you could go and check out if you wanted, if you thought you were wasting your time here in my chat, but you can feel free to keep giving me views and time. That's awesome. Eden is worse. Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah, I don't fucking care. I don't care about Super Mega. I do not care who that is. I do not know who that is, and it does not matter.
To the minds of liberals.
It doesn't matter. It's not important for this.
Otherwise wouldn't think about because they're not weirdly obsessed. But when they do start thinking about them, they get really confused and they don't know which bathroom a trans woman should go into. They get scared thinking about it. This works on not just liberals, but otherwise well-intentioned people too. They just want to make cis people think that trans people are somehow different than just women or men or however they identify. They can't use the same bathroom.
I don't care.
Or join the same sports teams. They should just go away forever. Or make their own, I guess. Whichever works. Whichever's easier. And arguments about how trans women are somehow more advantaged in athletics are
I just don't care about pronouns. Oh my god, you're such a fucking idiot.
I guess stand-up routine mocking trans athletes in sports.
They put a half an ounce here, half little tiny ring on top of these big barbells, dumbbells. Then they go and she went like this and her mother and father are screaming, "You got it! You got it, darling. I'm so proud of my girl."
He's like still doing this bit in
she couldn't do it.
In speeches. Isn't that where we got the picture of him like he's eating swatting flies.
This guy comes along. He's named Alice.
It's called being funny. It is called being funny. That's called humor.
World record.
He's been doing this for like 5 years. His first ever speech after leaving office in 2020 included this bit.
You know, for years, the weightlifting, every ounce is like a big deal for many years. All of a sudden, somebody comes along and beats it by 100 pounds. Boom, boom.
And he did it as recently as 2 or 3 months ago.
Now you look at the weightlifting where 18 years it stands. The record stood for 18, think of it, 18 years. And they put an eighth of an ounce here and an eighth of an ounce here, little tiny little bit.
Oh, but I'm sorry. I thought it mattered what individuals thought, because like I wouldn't be happy with you using my wrong pronouns and you're just disagreeing with a trans woman and then immediately insulting her. Oh, did you hear about the inventor of the Dill burrito dying of ass cancer? Yes, Dilbert guy is fucking dead. Eat shit. Eat shit, Dilbert guy. Did you hear? Do you remember when he got talk like a cuck disease, where his like vocal cords were all fucked up, so he had to talk like baby voice? Like that's like a canonical fact about Dill burrito guy. You get to a certain point in your life, you realize pronouns don't matter very much, and to you, that's subjective. Also, the pronoun issue, then this is, I'll pause here to actually talk about this. The pronoun issue is another thing where you have to put your foot down because otherwise you're going to be disrespected. Like, it is a disrespectful action to misgender someone or to call someone their dead name. It is an intentional act of violence against them. And like, yeah, maybe we're using the word violence a little bit like, willy-nilly there. It is a level that is it is a choice to disrespect them, and you should be treated the way that you would be treated if you just insulted someone. And like, yeah, you can choose to not like me because I'm insulting you. I'm not here to be the pundit for all trans people. I'm a shitty asshole and I'm gonna be mean to you. That's why people are here. That's my channel. If you were surprised by that, I'm not gonna change who I am just because you're offended by me. Sorry, snowflake, I guess. Everyone has different ideas about what respect means. Yeah, and my idea of what respect means is shoving your little face into my ass cheeks and taking a big fart. Empathy for others, yeah, says the person who has been sitting in my call or in my chat being unempathetic and a huge asshole the whole time.
He's gonna do it, Mom. I love you. I'm gonna do it for you, Mom. And she goes,
go find someone. You've been here for like an hour. Go find something better to do.
Mom, I'm gonna do it, Mom.
Look at my channel.
Can't do it. And then a guy comes along.
Putting your foot down results in more disc. What are you fucking talking about? GameStop, for example? Like just the concept of GameStop? That doesn't mean anything. Putting your foot down results in more disrespect. Good. Good. Be disrespectful to people that are being bigoted. I'm gonna be so for real with you. I think we should be able to just hit racists with bricks in the street. I think we should be able to just hit. We should just be able to hit people that are Nazis. It should be not illegal. I'm not a legislator. I don't get to like make those decisions, but I think it would be awesome. I would never be a class traitor. I could never. We should have the German definition of self-defense. GameStop trans it viral. I don't care. I'm sorry that you saw a viral video of somebody who was upset and decided to yell because they were upset. That I don't care. I don't care. That's not evidence. That's not real.
A transitions person comes along, 206 pounds. They put the little thing on, and he goes,
Yeah, Deadman's awesome. She's fucking hilarious.
and breaks a record
Or they
by
are
119
fucking hilarious.
Okay, he's actually.
See, now I'm fucking it up.
But you're not supposed to.
I'm being an asshole.
Women
I should
can't
be
lift weights. They're not
beaten dead,
strong.
honestly.
They don't know how to do it. Women, don't worry. Donald Trump is here to protect you. He knows you're so weak and feeble and fragile. It's funny because it's kind of like if a kindergartner tried to make a biological essentialist argument because it's anti-scientific. Men are big and small, and women.
Deadman's actually been here in chat before. It's been really awesome. They're really, really cool.
Is also because a lot of people watch sports. Team sports, combat sports.
Oh, you know what I need to do now that I have it again?
Watch this stuff on their TV and phone, and therefore many think that they have the skills and experience necessary to determine what the rules should.
We should
be.
rewatch Part-Time Killer. I think it's on. And then they did the People's Joker's on Tubi now. We should probably watch that on stream. I doubt that. I don't think Vera Drew would be coming for me if I streamed her thing on Tubi on stream. Her Brianna video sucked. I don't care. I don't care. This movie is so fucking funny. I need to rewatch it. I'm so glad I got the DVD of it too. I need to see if my friend will sign this. I actually know the director and the star of this movie. Ba ba ba. I managed to bring over my whole movie collection, at least all of the ones that matter. By that I mean most of the good ones. Most of. I had to let go a whole bunch of people.
Dropped out after accepting the match, even though fencing is.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna take a look at their channel afterwards and see what they have to say, because I think they'll be able to prove me right with their own words. But I mean, this is given, if nothing else, this is giving me future content.
Sport.
I just.
I love infighting.
Because this was like the last thing I wanted to deal with in my competition.
Like, sorry, this is just transphobia. She doesn't have any advantage against you. It just proves how easy it is to get national attention, strictly from just not wanting to participate with trans people. Really gross behavior. You instantly get a fucking interview on Fox News and get to testify in front of the House of Representatives and treated like the victim, because you were being prejudiced and bigoted. There's another question I think is also very important to ask when it comes to Riley Gaines and the narrative around trans people in sports in general.
My topless wife brings me a sandwich, not asked for. She's standing just off screen with her boobies out. I'm not gonna show you.
Even acknowledge that this happens. Transphobes do objectively love zooming in on both cis and trans women's groins to analyze if they're trans. And most of the time, they still get it wrong. Maybe because of Riley Gaines, there's a focus on women swimming, but either way, Riley Gaines has risen to be a prominent figure in right-wing media because of her transphobic attacks on Leah Thomas after tying with her for 5th place. Of course, Riley did not stop there. Nowadays, she's going on Fox News talking about how transgender is a pedophile cult.
I think the scarier thing here is there are no limits, right? We should be asking ourselves what's next. If we are willing to deny sex, okay, are we willing to deny age? Which I personally believe this is the direction that's going. I believe the gender ideology movement as a whole really is an attempt to normalize pedophilia across the board, and I think that's what we're seeing with this movement.
Man, you get 5th place once, and then I guess you discover the Illuminati. Crazy how that works.
That's
Riley
awesome.
has actually earned herself multiple SEC championship medals, which are definitely real and valid accomplishments in collegiate athletics. But to be honest, her own behavior and her own priorities.
You know what we
have
also
completely
still need to
tarnished
do
that very record.
is we need to
athletics.
play Lies of
Probably never
P
will.
because
She's a
80
tool
got it for
more
me
powerful
for
interests, and she chose
Christmas.
to do this to herself. And even though Riley initially said she supported Leah Thomas and her transition, she still blamed the NCAA's rules for even allowing her to be there in the first place, which is honestly the most fucking pussy shit I've ever heard in my life. Yeah, you know, she swam really hard, but if she wasn't there, then I would also be in 5th place. The rules are the problem. But of course, it didn't take her long to fold completely on the respectability politics and start calling trans people child abusers. In my opinion, part of why Riley Gaines was so quickly successful with her right-wing grip
Scratch a
is how quickly
transphobe.
she adapted to the tenacity and the
Sketch
slanderous
is find a
nature of
fascist
transphobic
every single
consequence
time.
online. But the funding and the PR from the Leadership Institute probably didn't hurt. If you don't know, the Leadership Institute is an organization funded by the Kochs and Morton Blackwell, a guy who definitely doesn't look like an 1800s railroad magnate. The Leadership Institute, which Morton Blackwell founded and runs, launched the Riley Gaines Center on its campus. Their website says, the Riley Gaines Center will protect the female identity, affirm the basic biological truth that men are men and women are women, and defend freedom of speech. Sorry, that was just a really funny run-on sentence to me. Men are men, women are women, and defend free speech. The 3 genders. Get over it.
True.
Liberals. It will also provide support, training, and resources to those who want to defend
I don't want to think
women's
about it.
identity and
I don't want to
uphold
think about it.
vital truths.
I'm not
Building a
thinking about the
coalition of
gnome.
Women, men, student athletes, parents, and those who have been
The
harmed
only
by
gnome.
transgender ideology. And
The only gnome I want to hear about is Christy Gnome, and the only thing I want to hear about her is that she's resigning.
include identifying, recruiting, training, mentoring, and empowering students, athletes, and parents across the country to become campus, community, and national leaders. God, it's a literal Riley Gaines factory. The Riley Gaines Center. Pumping them out on a fucking conveyor belt. I mean, is it any more obvious? Leftists don't get this shit. No leftist online is getting their talking points from a foundation named after them, owned by a billionaire, providing PR, talking points, and fucking Fox News daytime TV slots. My third important question for this video is, why Leah Thomas? Leah Thomas became a target of right-wing media for months, and still, to some degree, is. The rampant abuse and transphobia that Riley Gaines enabled and propagated with her Cry Bully tour that still goes on to this day is fucking repulsive. It's gross. She felt the need to talk about seeing Leah's genitals.
In addition to losing out on opportunities to Thomas, we also had to share a locker room and change in front of this 6'4", fully intact, naked male.
Which is just public humiliation and sexual harassment, by the way. But not surprising from these fucking guys. Here's the Daily Wire calling Leah Thomas satanic.
Are some of the things they do satanic, would you say?
Yes.
Really? Not surprised by that.
They practice these satanic things based off of posts and based off of the content that they
Bro, no, don't show her art. That's fucked up. She's just drawing.
Also had these fucking people on with shirts that said women's sports matter. No, these are real fucking caring individuals, really empathetic people. And
It's satanic, bro. That's mean.
A joke about what if a big man was swimming against a woman? She would get fucking destroyed, no matter what. I mean, not to bring up the Trump thing again, but in one of his speeches where he mentions Riley Gaines, at least I think he's talking about Riley Gaines. I don't know if he knows who he's talking about. He was joking, but he implies that Leah Thomas swum so fast that Riley Gaines was injured.
The swimmer you know about, right? The swimmer. She's a great swimmer, great swimmer. She's going for the world record. She looked up and down. She sees young ladies that she grew up with. They're all great swimmers. They've been from the time they were born, frankly, because that's the way it is. She looked up. She sees her friend. She looks down.
That's
then
the way
she
it
went to
is.
her right, and there's this huge person with a wingspan. He was built like this. She was built, I'm sorry, like this. Most perfect body. I wish I had a body like that. I would have been president 20 years ago if I had this body. It comes down like this.
Ew.
And you know, the young
Ew.
lady was very seriously injured.
Just
You know
gross.
that.
Weird thing to say.
Windburn, because he went by her so fast. The wind was so great. She got a bad windburn, but she'll be okay. Now, do you think, does anybody really believe what's going on in this country?
She got windburn. Women are just too fucking bad at sports and fragile. A man could swim next to one and they get hurt. These guys are fighting for women. They care so much about women. Lift you up by the pussy. That's his motto. No, he really does have a particular grudge against Leah for what I think has to be a personal reason. If you look through Gaines's record, her highest place achievement in a Division I swimming competition was the race where she tied with Leah Thomas.
My story is by now well known. I was a student at University of Kentucky, where I was also a member of the women's swim team, finishing my collegiate career as a 12-time NCAA All-American, a 5-time SEC champion, still the SEC record holder in the 200 butterfly, making me one of the fastest Americans of all time.
And as many of us know, she was then
That's a
given
fucking
the
weird way to say it.
to hold during a photo op at the end. And according to Riley, her main gripe is not getting a good enough answer as to why she couldn't hold the 5th place trophy and Leah hold the 6th place trophy.
Despite tying down to the 100th with Thomas in the 200 freestyle, I was denied the trophy because the NCAA claimed it was necessary for Thomas to hold the trophy when photos were being taken.
Which, if you really think about it, is a lot like Hitler's Germany. This fucking comes across as a parody of itself, but it does make a little more sense that this was Riley's best time in a Division I competition. But of course, a trans woman tied for that best time. So I think she clearly felt a little outshone.
I came back my senior year, and I knew I could accomplish even more than I had my junior year. And this is when I really set a goal to become a national champion. About halfway through my senior year, I was on pace to do so. I was ranked 3rd in the country. The swimmer who was ranked 1st was a swimmer I had never heard of before. And of course, this was the first time that I became aware of a swimmer named Leah Thomas. And so, unbeknownst to me at the time, this was a male. There's a lot of head scratching going on.
And rather than being a good sport about it, which she was to every other woman she lost to, the 4 other ones, she threw a generational hateful tantrum because she feels like Leah Thomas shouldn't have been there. Again, even though she still would have gotten 5th place. She just would have been able to hold the trophy for the photo. They mailed her a 5th place trophy later, by the way. Like, they gave her one. It's not like she was robbed of anything other than a picture. It's just bad sportsmanship. I never played collegiate athletics, but I swam in high school. And I feel like this should be pretty easily condemned by every collegiate sports association across the board. I feel like the first thing they teach you in competitive sports is to be a good sport. Sportsmanship is enforced in a lot of professional sports, like tennis. You can get punished for not being sportsmanlike. And I think that's pretty fair. I also like hockey, where they get to punch each other. That is also allowed. The fact that this is even a conversation and in such clear bad faith, I think speaks to
This guy was also a swimmer.
transphobic bias that a lot of people
Coincidence?
have, and how easy
I
it
think
is
not.
to
I
others
still need to read
because
this.
of that bias. I feel like people like Riley Gaines
I
know
did it a
that
million
there's
years ago, but it's
system
probably
of
worth
cult
reading
manager
again.
who doesn't really give a shit about trans people and isn't gonna die on this hill. when
Maybe
they're
we'll read
embarrassed
this
by
Insane
some
Guys
annoying
manifesto
ass,
next
right?
stream.
And I do think that's also part of the problem. The people who should have defended Leah Thomas should have defended her harder. There should have been more people coming to Leah Thomas's defense and shutting down Riley Gaines before she caught the momentum that she has now. And it's ultimately really ironic because trans women like Leah Thomas are disadvantaged by being on hormones. When it comes to sports, many trans women are. But transphobic propaganda doesn't exist in reality. It exists in a fucking fictional world.
This is stuff that we talked about from the NIH review. Is that there's evidence to suggest that trans people actually have disadvantages in some sports, based on decreasing muscle mass and bone density through HRT.
Dictate the rules to.
Studies consistently show males have about a 10 to 12% athletic advantage over females. This gap is evident in almost every sport and at every level of competition. Yes, hormone therapy can narrow this gap, but it cannot close it. and studies consistently demonstrate that surgery and testosterone suppression do not reduce male athletic performance to normal female levels.
I want to be
It
very
is not
clear. It
correct.
is not true that trans women have an overall biological advantage in sport that is deeply rooted in misogyny against cis women primarily, and transphobia to trans women. Maybe the fucking windburn jostle her fucking head around. She's stupid. Leah Thomas swam fucking Mach 10 past her, still got 5th place.
This seems like cheating to allow someone with a biological advantage to compete.
Exactly. I think there's, a difference between your sex and your gender identity, and so I think that it's just been totally misconstrued and lost, in the past couple years or so, but it's, finally gotten to the point where it's being shown and it's completely violating women and women's rights, especially in sports.
There is no factual evidence to support the fact that trans women have a biological advantage in sports. I'm not joking. This is a vibes-based opinion that is obviously criminally understudied, but right-wingers know that there's no data to support what they're saying, but they know that there's very limited data to counter what they're saying at the same time. But there is no reason to concede to this stupid, fake, bullshit talking point that trans women shouldn't be able to participate in women's sports like any other cis woman can. After losing to Leah Thomas, Riley Gaines retired from athletics and became a full-time podcaster. Big goddamn
Awesome.
surprise. Her podcast is called Gains for Girls. And trans women are not allowed to watch it. Gains for cis girls. Other than that, she does frequent Fox News guest appearances. And she made this insane website. Riley Gaines, athlete, advocate. That is impact font. That is top text, bottom text font. Also, your signature looks like shit. Ralui Genesmd. And now she's having a baby girl. Gains for Girls, pregnant with a girl. Because God is so good. All the time. I didn't even mean to wear this shirt. This is just a fucking coincidence. Maybe it's proof that God's real. God is real, Riley Gaines. He hates you and your baby. He told me. I love treating gender just a little bit like a threat. My kid will be a girl, and if she's not, the implication of that is a little crazy to me. I mean, I guess trans women not being able to get pregnant means that they can play more sports and win all the medals. This is unfair and should be punishable by law, I think. Lock me up, officer. I just showed up to basketball. I'm dunking on Caitlin Clark, and I got no baby in me. I'm sorry, I thought we were all about efficiency now. Unfortunately, Leah Thomas is not the only trans woman that has faced this kind of harassment just for wanting to participate in sports fairly. There's an entire website dedicated to pointing out cis women that have lost to trans women, the Grifter Encyclopedia, called SheWon.com. She won.
I mean, obviously they didn't mean it like this, but if you look at it like they're gendering the trans girls correctly, yeah, she did win. I thought this was sports. I thought it was about who's the best. To learn more about the male athletes competing in women's sports, please visit hecheated.org. They cheated. A record of males who have robbed female athletes of success and opportunities in sports, and the organizations who have helped to do them so. Do so. Different sports.
I was gonna pull this up too, but I remembered it was in the video.
His parents
Where the he cheated or whatever. They have a whole weird.
girls athletics team.
She'll show it. They have a whole fucking database that's fucked up and stupid.
Time, I guess.
Just super poorly gathered information.
An adult man says he's a woman. He joins a women's team. He's immediately bombarded with praise, featured in newspaper and magazine articles, given interviews and TV spots, uplifted as a courageous pioneer in athletics, despite doing nothing more than joining a team where he doesn't belong, where he would have been criticized and ridiculed by those same media outlets and civil rights groups if he hadn't spoken the magic words, "I'm a woman?" First of all, this never happened. This is hypothetical because this is a fake thing. Because he said those magic words, he's suddenly a marginalized minority. I don't trust that not to be a race thing. These people are always really racist. Let's take a look at this fucking stolen record of stolen trophies and medals and lives and careers. Esports? First of all, I searched ball. It gave me the one sport with no ball. The search engine sucks. What she could have won? Gold medal. Georgia Peplau lost to a trans esports player in eFootball. Why do you need to separate esports by gender? That doesn't even make sense. And
They're just better at video games.
Trans women are just better than cis women. Cis women are just not good at anything. Soccer, track and field, pickleball. Again, I looked up ball and it gave me track and field. The fuck is this website? Analysis. Number of women by sport. It won't let me click it. It's not even there. Disc golf. Roller skating? Running is over here, but distance running is over here. Skateboarding. None of these make sense. Cycling, Irish dance, of course. Trans people are just naturally better at those kinds of things. Oh, this is so pathetic. All the people who would have won if not for a trans person participating, implying that their participation makes everyone do worse? Darts? Darts. I don't know what to tell you, dude. Trans people can just throw the dart really hard. Paragliding? Come on! That's just a joke at that point. Paragliding. These people are out of their minds. This is so embarrassing. It's so embarrassing. Just stop. Just find a fucking better hobby than this.
This website is really fucking stupid, by the way. And it includes a fuck ton of sports that are not gendered at all, like frisbee golf, which transphobes are very into for some reason. Poker. Surfing, croquet. There's no cornhole. I guess because trans women aren't good at it. I don't know.
We just can't find a cornhole.
Actually did a really good job taking down this website as a completely fucking bogus source, and they responded on Twitter with a 15-tweet thread.
Awesome.
Just screenshot your notes app or something. I'm not reading all this.
Oh my god, this is so long, dude. How do you do this? She Won recently made an appearance on Last Week Tonight. John Oliver stuck to his tired recipe, dishonest sanctimony wrapped in a thick coating of self-deprecation, all the easier to swallow. What the fuck are you talking about, you weirdo? So you didn't like him already to begin with. You don't exactly seem like the most honest broker here. This time about male athletes in women's sports, and specifically about our organization. First, John Oliver leads his viewers to believe that content on shewon.org is directly published by random people on the internet. This is totally false. We encourage people to submit tips, and our team of volunteers reviews each entry before we publish anything, and their volunteers are definitely not random people on the internet. They're fucking certified in sports gender.
Yeah.
Also suggests our data is stale, mentioning that it dates back to the year 2001. This is extraordinarily misleading. 97% of our data is dated no earlier than 2014. 86% is 2019 and onward. He didn't lie.
So he was right.
Extraordinarily misleading. It's the truth. John Oliver attacks our org to discredit the idea that a significant number of women are displaced by male athletes in women's competitions. This is absurd because She Won does not purport to provide a comprehensive list of every woman denied a medal to male athletes. On the contrary, we are a tiny organization run by volunteers. The database we
so it's worse than this.
Well, oh my god. It's exaggerated and bullshit. And they're like, oh, it's even worse than this. You don't even know how many darts tournaments trans people are fucking ruining. The sad truth is that no media outlet has seriously investigated the scope of this problem, and sporting organizations are more often than not hostile to providing any data about males and female competition, because it doesn't happen. They're hostile because you're weird. Oliver quibbles with our tally. One male winner displaces second, third, and fourth place women, which counts as 3 medals lost. We see no issue with this methodology. 3 medals were lost. If the trans person wasn't there, everyone else wouldn't magically be faster. The unfortunate truth is we're severely undercounting the number of affected women. Yeah, you know what? Add fucking 5, 6 more medals. In a recent hearing, a high school girl recounts how she was deliberately and explicitly replaced by a male athlete on her cross-country team. Tell me again how girls and women aren't being erased? She is at the California State Assembly. She is on public television testifying to the California State Assembly. She should be less visible than she is now. If you don't want to get removed from your cross-country team and replaced, run a little faster. I don't know what to tell you. You suck. There's another silent toll. Women who never enter the game, knowing the game's rigged, or unwilling to undress besides a naked man in the locker room. The whole point of locker rooms is to not look at everyone else, is to change your clothes and to shower. You're not supposed to be looking at other people and being like, let me make sure everyone's genitals are right. It's such an illogical thing to try to like fearmonger over, because it also implies if they look at trans women like men, then it just implies that men are inherently dangerous, which is misandry. Looks like you're a misandrist, and it looks like we're finally on the same side. What the fuck, man? Where's all the men's mental health posts about this shit? John Oliver makes an extraordinary effort to paint this issue as left versus right. He goes out of his way to frame the young advocates he's chosen to focus on as far-right conservatives. Yeah, what? Of course they are. Showing countless clips of them being interviewed on Fox News when he's not ridiculing their athletic ability. Yeah, they're really good. They're not mad because they suck. They're mad because they're transphobic. and they're not right-wing. What the fuck is this thread? Why did I read this?
You might have seen recently that Riley Gaines got into a controversy with Simone Biles, and I have a lot of fucking shit to fucking say about this. It's genuinely fucking sickening how Riley Gaines got away with what initially started this. Riley Gaines found a high school with a trans softball player and publicly harassed the high school softball team. You have to be, and I'm not even joking, a criminal pervert to do stuff like this. You're going to the prison at the core of the earth. Now, Simone Biles rightfully called out what Riley Gaines was doing, saying, "You're truly sick. All of this campaigning because you lost a race. Straight up sore loser. You should be uplifting the trans community and perhaps finding a way to make sports inclusive or creating a new avenue where trans athletes feel safe in sports. Maybe a transgender category in all sports, but instead you bully them. One thing's for sure, no one in sports is safe with you around," which is completely fair and true. Her suggestions are a little all over the place, but it just goes to show that Riley Gaines doesn't actually care about finding a solution and just wants to be cruel for the sake of cruelty. Simone Biles followed up with "bully someone your own size," which would unironically be a male. And you could tell this struck a nerve, not just with Riley, but with the broader conservative movement as a whole. Literally since the moment Simone Biles posted this, Riley has been shitting herself and crying about how mean Simone Biles was to her and how disappointed she is. "You need to do better," says the person who was bullying a child. She said, "This is actually so disappointing. It's not my job or the job of any woman to figure out how to include men in our spaces. Again, high school softball. You can uplift men stealing championships in women's sports with your platform. Men don't belong in women's sports, and I say that with my full chest. You are a fucking sick human being, like genuinely, dude." And of course, Riley Gaines also made a fucking stupid car rant in her Cybertruck. It looks like shit, Riley. It's as ugly as you are. You were fucking made for each other.
I guess in an attempt to be inclusive and virtuous, decided to sell out all women and girls who have dreams to achieve and to succeed.
Is she in a Cybertruck?
Personally attack and body shame me.
Your jawline looks like a Cybertruck. And
Oh my
this
god,
is
it
about
is.
women's sports and, you know, how sacred it is, Riley Gaines
A
has
fucking
to pretend
loser.
like she respects Simone Biles' athletic career, which if she actually did respect Simone, she wouldn't have called her a sellout to all women and girls and consistently attacked her online.
It was never the personal attacks that bothered me. It was more so just how willing and quick she was able to and willing to throw under the bus so many young girls who have dreams to achieve and succeed just like she did.
After Riley Gaines sicked her disgusting fan base on Simone Biles, she eventually caved and apologized. I wanted to follow up from my last tweets. I've always believed competitive equity and inclusivity are both essential in sports. The current system doesn't adequately balance these important principles, which often leads to frustration and heated exchanges, and it didn't help for me to get personal with Riley, which I apologize for. These are sensitive, complicated issues that I truly don't have the answers or solutions to, but I believe it starts with empathy and respect. I was not advocating for policies that compromise fairness in women's sports. My objection is to be singling out children for public scrutiny in ways that feel personal and harmful. Individual athletes, especially kids, should never be the focus of criticism of a flawed system they have no control over. I believe sports organizations have a responsibility to come up with rules supporting inclusion while maintaining fair competition. We all want a future for sports that is fair, inclusive, and respectful. First of all, that's not even true. Riley Gaines does not want a fair, inclusive, or respectful sports. She wants to eliminate trans people from it entirely.
Nonetheless, I accept her apology. I see this truthfully as a really big win. You have this really famous public figure who is now issuing a groveling public apology and backtracks after, again,
What a
tweeting
bitch. What a
pro-trans
bitch.
propaganda, if you will. This
Oh my
scenario
god.
had been
She's such a
unthinkable
mean girl.
certainly 2 years ago.
Which to me, not super fair. I know a way to eliminate trans women from sports. Be better than them. Train harder, loser. 4 other cis women beat Leah Thomas, why couldn't she? It's good that Simone brought up that Riley Gaines started this by attacking a child completely unprompted. But the respectability politics and the niceties are nauseating to me when that is the catalyst. And Riley Gaines is leveraging those niceties and politeness to coerce an apology out of Simone Biles. It gives credibility to her argument and allows her to look like she's taking the high road when she's been slandering trans people on national television for months.
Even taking puberty blockers before the age of 12, there are still advantages that males possess over females.
No, there's
And
not.
even if they didn't,
There's not.
It's the women's category.
Yeah.
It's not for men.
So
Shut up, Riley. You look like a thwomp from Mario. I'm not saying this is a rule, but a law of engagement with Republicans.
Kissy noises,
and
kissy
conservatives in
noises.
general,
Mwah,
especially
mwah, mwah.
trans folk.
Keep it
Do
real,
not
April.
apologize
Love heart.
to dishonest, bad
Thank
faith
you.
idiots. Do not apologize to right-wingers. They are wrong. They don't want you to apologize to establish more clear
Love you,
and
Zoe. You're a
effective
sweetheart.
communication or a better relationship. They want you to apologize to leverage their argument and weaken your position, sometimes at the cost of kids. It's never worth it. And Riley, if you're somehow watching, you're a bad person. You're a liar, you're a fraud, and you're mean. You should be doing a fucking apology tour for the child and multiple other women you've slandered and bullied just for playing sports. Just for wanting the same experience that you had and the same opportunities that you had. Playing sports because they want to, despite the environment that you contribute to that continues to make it not only hostile, but unsafe. But you're too busy reveling in an apology that you didn't deserve. But you're the good guys at the end of the day, right? So it doesn't matter what you do. It's always for the good reasons. Riley Gaines has been on a right-wing media tour for basically her entire public career. The creepy billionaire money does help with that, for sure. But she's also made herself very useful for the right, and she knows it. She's been on Tucker Carlson, of course, The Daily Wire, like fucking 17 times or something. Numerous Turning Point USA and Turning Point UK speaking events. And she was interviewed by Stephen A. Smith and Joe Rogan, among others. Luckily for her, no one that has interviewed her is particularly bright or like a good interviewer or reporter at all. So she's managed to keep her brand afloat for now. And yeah, she's here to tell the same story and rattle the same talking points off every time.
you have your back turned, again, putting on your suit, and all of a sudden you hear a man's voice in that locker room.
That's so
You turn
mean.
around, you look up because he's so tall, and there's a 6'4" man undressing, taking off his women's swimsuit and putting on his street clothes.
Just being a bitch.
Again, picture it. You're in a swimming locker room, which there's no stalls necessarily. It's just a big open space. You're under the shower head, you're showering, and there is a 6'4" naked man standing fully naked, fully intact, watching you shower where you are simultaneously fully undressed.
I mean, even she doesn't care about her record that much. The people who report her story get it wrong all the time, and she doesn't even try to correct them.
I remember the first time I met you, and it brought me to tears because you shared with me what it felt like not to hold a gold medal because you were in first place, but to be told that you tied. You'll have to settle for it just with that delineation on it. What
That's
happens
not
now?
what happened.
We will see. Hopefully this sets a precedent for more institutions at every single level.
Yeah, Leah Thomas won the gold medal from Riley Gaines and stole it from her and stole her house too and her weird husband too. Riley Gaines regularly is a guest on right-wing media shows. They had her on so she could flaunt her apology from Simone Biles, and she did this multiple times. And this is exactly why you should never even give them this opportunity. This is exactly what every right-winger would do the moment you apologize. They fucking brag about it and try to shame you even though you apologized. And remember, Simone Biles only ever came for Riley Gaines because she was bullying a high schooler. Interesting that Riley Gaines didn't get a ton of backlash for that. Or even for gloating the apology. Why would you apologize to somebody who's just gonna gloat about it? Apologizing to these people is only giving them more ammunition and more clearance to target increasingly marginalized and vulnerable people. And the only reason she has this platform at all is to distract from the real issues affecting more people than even play sports in schools at all. Even now, amid their Epstein Files scandal, the Trump administration is trying to drum up more anti-trans sentiment.
And today, the Department of Justice has filed a lawsuit against California Department of Education and the governing body for women's sports in California. We've made it very clear, only women in women's sports under Title IX. An example in California, a boy who was in track and field. He would have lost every race. Yet in women's sports, he won over 36 medals. Those medals should be returned to the women.
It couldn't be clearer that this is a distraction from the real issues affecting the country. It's so embarrassing, and it's not even working. Even right-wingers can see through this. Listen, in my opinion, all sports are made worse by dividing them into gendered leagues, rather than by athletic ability or even weight class. Abolishing any kind of division in sports would allow more people to participate, not less, and less people would get propped up in the media for beating down and bullying fellow athletes. Riley Gaines exists for one reason and one reason only: to perpetuate the idea that even the most skilled and accomplished woman is inherently weaker and less capable than even the weakest, least accomplished man. She is there to tell all women, you can't do it. There will always be someone better than you, simply because they have a weenor. I guess you should just have babies instead of doing sports, because they're full of trans people now. Riley Gaines is a selfish, manipulative grifter. And a liar. And like many other transphobic snake oil saleswomen, she's deluded herself into thinking that she's fighting a righteous war against ontologically evil trespassers. And she has no shortage of delusional backup for this ridiculous self-inflicted battle. It's really not that deep. You are not Master Chief. I am Master Chief. What's especially disturbing is how far the current administration is willing to go to use federal funding to strong-arm universities into doing things like revoking Leah Thomas's win and apologizing to Riley Gaines. And what does Riley do in response to this but immediately gloat and attack Leah, even when she's getting everything she wants? It's not even close to a stretch to say that Riley Gaines is a terrible example for young athletes and for women in general. So what I find particularly revolting is how quickly Democratic strategists, liberals, or even supposed allies took to this exclusionary and cruel messaging from the right, even going so far as to try to blame trans people for Donald Trump's 2024 election win. I don't even know if I have enough words available to me to explain how stupid that is. Solidarity is the only way forward if you care about people at all. And leaving behind trans people, especially only to make room for cynical, compromised agents of right-wing influence, is a surefire way to sabotage any kind of future progress. Riley wants to be the new generation's Anita Bryant, but for trans people, which is seemingly
We should hit her with a pie then.
To right-wing influence. Anita Bryant also believed she was fighting a spiritual war for the children of this country and the sanctity of gender, but is now widely remembered as a bitter, hateful, ineffective, washed-up celebrity. And Riley's gonna get that same treatment long after she's gone too. As much as I know that right-wing media is not gonna willingly let this issue go, I think it will increasingly be an ineffective wedge issue, and the results will speak for themselves. But I don't know. We'll see. Fuck you, Riley Gaines. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please click the like button or subscribe to see more videos like this.
Thank you, Eden.
Click the notification.
Yeah, there we go. Just nice, easy, going over everything I was talking about. And being funny about it even. Just to settle us out. Alright, I do have to head out. So, friends, I am going to take us back a little bit. And slap on some music and play us out. I'll see if I can find you someone to raid into, and I'll talk to you all on Thursday. I'll be back. Maybe we'll read that Crazy Guys manifesto. I'll talk to you all in Discord so we can figure out what we want to do next. We still do have to play Liza P also. Just happened to take up a lot of time today. Alright. So I will see you all on Thursday. Have a really good one.
けどちょっと本気だ
いつも支えてくれる人たちに日頃の思いを込めたラプソディアプリシエーションな気持ちよ堂々けいつもありがとう本当はありがとうたとえどこに立って君の存在に感謝してるよきっと皆意外とシャイで面と向かってなかなか口に出して言えなくて
だけど本当は言いたいくせに何かが邪魔して皆強がって
時にはさら